Now, the Inspector General of Police has announced a nationwide crackdown on motorcyclists who break road regulations. He has outlined a number of measures to be implemented to bring sanity on the roads and reduce motorcycle-related deaths. Recent records show that motorcycle accidents are the leading cause of death in the country. As of February this year, over 230 lives had been lost. But to make this a thing of the past, the IGP, Dr. George Akufu-Dampare, put out these measures.
If we are not precautious and we don't take action now, the next day it could be any one of us using motorbike who will be passing or who have the leg or hand amputated. This is something we want to do. So we want to say this, and it goes to carry it across. You don't lose anything. You don't lose anything. And in fact, you gain everything. If you stay for 1 minute to 2 minutes by the traffic light and wait for green for you to move on, you gain everything. You gain your life. You gain the life of your children. You gain the life of your friends. You gain the life of your uncles and aunties. And you gain the life of your brothers and sisters. And you also gain the life of a friend or a Ghanaian or any user of the road whom by your action will have died. So 5 things you need to do to make sure that this incident on motorbike stops. 1, make sure before you step out there with the motorbike.
Let's now turn our attention to the Volta region, where the Evangelical Presbyterian College of Education in Amejofe in the whole West District is battling with a myriad of challenges 75 years after it was established. The major challenge of the institution, which has produced thousands of teachers, is inadequate infrastructure to accommodate the student population, and faculty management of Ameco at the 75th anniversary celebration appealed to government and benevolent organizations to come to the aid of the school.
The Evangelical Presbyterian College of Education was established some 75 years ago. The institution, situated in Amejope, the highest human settlement point in Ghana, though has contributed immensely to the teaching force of Ghana, does not have enough infrastructure. It lacks hostels to accommodate the over 1,000 student population, teachers' bungalow, and lecture halls. Officers are compelled to share space, hereby hindering administrative work. The college principal, Dr. Dixon Chair, alluded to the challenges when addressing the Grand Deba for the 75th anniversary celebrations of Ameco.
It is sad to note that most of the staff of the college commute between Ho and Amejope due to the inadequate accommodation on campus. Sadly also, a 4-story ladies get farm hostel facility started in 2010 has been abandoned at the foundation stage. Obviously, this is not befitting of 75-year-old college.
Senior Presidential Advisor Yao Osafo Mafo, who emphasized the role of education and development, shared some good news with the gathering.
No nation, and I repeat, no nation can develop without paying attention to education. Education is the weapon for development. And therefore, if you want to develop, you must pay attention to education. Hence, making second cycle education free for the whole system. So in addition to the road network, which is seriously being considered, and my attention has been drawn to the project started by Get Fund in 2010, which is still at the foundation stage. I have also discussed that because I had a win before coming with Get Fund, and the work will begin on that project soonest.
The Volta Regional Minister, Dr. Archibald Yaolecha underscored the contributions of Ameco to the growth of the country's human resources and assured of the continuous support of the Regional Coordinating Council to the institution. The University of Ghana, Legon, has been mentoring the EP College of Education. The Vice-Chancellor of the University of Ghana, Professor Nanaba Apia Amfo, indicated that efforts are being made to build capacity of the faculty of Ameco in research development and ICT and to develop promotional guidelines for faculty and principals. Management channeled a portion of its internally generated funds towards the construction of the administration annex and a two-story, 4-unit staff bungalow to ease the accommodation burden. Fred Kwame Asari, JoyNews, Amejope.
Let me now take you to the Ashanti region, where the regional minister Simon Osei-Mensah wants Guineans to desist from tagging only politicians as corrupt. He believes if a conscious effort is made by the general public to change that attitude, corruption would be reduced in the country. There's more in the following report.
Over 9.7 million of the country's population are Christians. A number of politicians who find themselves in this category are mostly tagged as corrupt. But Simon Osei-Mensah believes corruption cannot be tackled if other public officials and civil servants found in churches refuse to change their ways. He was speaking at a Durbar and Thanksgiving service of the centenary celebration of the Asante Presbytery of the Presbyterian Church of Ghana.
Among the 70% we are talking about. So if the 70% Christians are able to change, if they are able to live lives worth emulation, definitely corruption will come down. But always if we point at the politicians and ignore the people of the various churches, then we will not make any headway. And I give myself as example as the regional minister. I don't sign checks. So before I can maybe steal money from the regional coordinating council, the check might be signed by the technocrats who are also the Christians. So if they decide not to do the wrong things, definitely corruption will be reduced drastically.
Moderator for the Presbyterian Church of Ghana and chairman of the Christian Council, Reverend Professor Joseph Obeni-Yabuamante, bemoans the chastisement Christian leaders occupying public offices face.
Why is it that Christianity is growing in this country, but it's clouded with greed, with foul talk, with pride, with corruption? Why? Why they show what to me? And I saw them so cry. Obi evangelist, so-called man of God, who call them more pro seeking and I would hear no and everything. If he now a flower man of God,
many are tagged greedy. He advises Christian leaders to be content in their quest for power.
Because for where I sit as chairman of Christian Council, every time we meet people in the public space who are not Christians, and they are chiding us with the fact that over 71% of Ghanaians are Christians, and yet you have more corruption, you have more greed. The greed in Ukraine, the coming. I know it's going to be, I don't want to say a year, and no man yet, no man be brave, no garage, no man be brave. What do you yet there? Quite.
Following the passage of the E-levy, which received mixed reactions from the public, a number of people have devised means to avoid the 100 Ghana cedis threshold. Chairperson of the Asante Presbytery, Reverend Benson Osafo Kantanka, wants the government to make judicious use of revenue generated.
One area we have reached now is on E-levy, because it is a source of money. People come from places, they come and work in the country and they send their monies there. So the government want to enter that place. The idea of entering the place is no problem. But how to make good use of the money we get is the problem now. We are pleading with the government that it should use the money judiciously to help the children, to help the country, so they can go forward.
Mona Lisa Frempon reporting.
Now, residents of Kwapia near Akokri in the Adansi North District have kicked against the operations of Akonte Quarry Limited in the area. They have therefore issued a one-week ultimatum for the mining company to regularize its operations or face their wrath. Details in this report.
Speaking to JoyNews at a press conference on the issue, Kwapeahene Nana Jamra Kwabena Yikwai II said the company has failed to fulfill obligations to the company before starting operations. According to him, the company needs to honor payment of right compensation to farmers affected by the quarry operations as well as other social responsibility agreements.
Omamuni nyina any company no any share and ye do to your monim say edi kan kwa mo fa so register assassin man fa kwan paso na ye
the whole community met with the company. We cautioned them to create a buffer zone between the town and the quarry.
Because there's a muja buffer be to kronu and quarry no and now to medie na mobedino. That's no a bit in the Ariaba. And Teddy Kaino, as a mining who, baby, more dumadian, Ebeshasia.
The general manager of Akunta Quarry Limited, Nana Owusubempa, when contacted on phone, said the company is permitted to settling the goodwill package with the community. He, however, noted some social responsibility undertakings will be fulfilled when the business is in full operations.
More bad Nanan Wasaswa, a woman's buying. And a bemam lances, but yes, a bemam social lances are waiting me at the year Juma. Answer, you have mamma crime, Mamma said Jumano. You hear me say, you hear hospital equipment.
Though the company may have license from government, we have to give them a social license to operate. But they have failed to meet their social responsibilities.
And Famra a crono, because a cronanca says hospital. It is no money near here. At Osubium, Afibiano. Yamba Yama Crono, and Yamu say, and some Yakano, Yamu called Yakotu Mumpanium for him, Yambasa Badium. Only Yama Bioma, Yamune, Yamufro Kriania, Niamu Fortunato Magiska.
Mona Lisa Frempon reporting.
On our very last story, Muslims at Awuakro Main in the Ahafo North South District are taking advantage of the Eid to strengthen unity amongst religious sects in the area. They say the move will help in building consensus to develop the communities. There's more in the following report.
Farming community dominated by settler farmers, mostly Muslims. Together, they have lived with indigents, making efforts to develop the area. The community have established a school structure for their children. The end of the month-long fasting by Muslims is a huge celebration here, not just Muslims but all religious sects. This year's celebration after the Muslim prayer was characterized by a feast. The big meal is prepared by the Muslim women and served to all present. Through a Muslim philanthropist, Alhaji Ibrahim Adams, widows in the area received pieces of cloth. Mohammed Bansi is a we all know that Christians and Muslims in Ghana are one people. Today, we are also donating to widows. Irrespective of your religion, you get something to go home. This is supposed to breed unity among us. Beneficiaries were excited, calling for the bond between the religious sects to last.
That's all for now. The show continues with Benjamin and Benis. My name is Pakwisi Shandoff. Do have a pleasant day. Bye-bye.
Alrighty, here we are, and there you are. Thank you for doing the watching. Don't you forget those questions we're posing to you this morning. It has to do with our press freedom ranking, and we've dropped from 30th to 60th. Want to find out what you think about that? Share your thoughts with us with the hashtag AM Show. Time now for the news review, and we're joined by Dr. Kwame Asah-Asante. Later we'll have lawyer Martin Kpebu, he is the Director of Center for European Studies at the University of Ghana, Dr. Kwame Asah-Asante. And there he is. Good morning, Doc.
Good morning, Ben. How are you?
I'm doing well. How about you?
Very well.
Great. Great to see. So let's get into the newspapers this morning. But even before we do so, I'd like to get into the latest press freedom rating, a global rating, Reporters Without Borders. And I'm sure, Doc, you've taken a look at the document. You've taken a look at the summary of it.
Yes, I have.
What are your quick reflections on it? Before I even get into it proper, what are your quick reflections on it?
It's very unfortunate that we have sunk so low in terms of the ranking, because democracy thrives on a free media, independent and fearless. And here you are, you have a report that is, like indictment on our system. Then it's a cause for worrying, because you cannot sustain, or as it were, strengthen the frontiers of a country's democracy without a media that is free from any type of controls. And for me, it's a worrying situation.
Let's look at the breakdown. So in 17 years, we have never sunk this low. In fact, our score is something that we've not seen in the last 17 years. We've also dropped from 30th to 60th. The ratings cover 180 countries. It means, yes, we're still better than 120 or 119 countries, if you like, but it's still very dicey in there. I want us to reflect on this in the context of some of what we've heard from people in the media, people who may not be in the media but have spoken to the issues, like Sir Sam Jonah, who spoke about the fact that we're being muzzled, that culture of silence is coming back. He was taken on for that. We saw what happened to Caleb Kuda, Zoe Abubeidu Lanza. We saw what happened to Bobi Ansa and a number of other people, maybe people who are not even journalists, like Oliver Barker-Vormawor, and he has his own context. But in the midst of all of this, we had Elizabeth Ohene, who herself has worked before with the BBC in recent times, come out with a lot of stuff about the media and certain things that are being done, taking on the BBC itself. Then we come and we're faced with the reality of this latest result. I want you to reflect on it in that context, Doc.
Yes, it's a whole basket of issues here. How we have arrived here from where we are coming from is a function of a number of factors. One is lack of professionalism on the part of some journalists, where they've gone beyond the board to carry out stories unprofessionally, and they've had their fingers bent. That is one aspect. Another aspect is also the issue of polarization that has characterized the work of journalists, some of them, of course, and this country, creating all manner of problems. And tied to that is the issue of having a law that makes it impossible for journalists to operate freely. What am I talking about? I'm talking about the law on false publication and all that, right? This is a law that has been passed and is still in our books. And the security apparatus are using them. And my worry is that if you have such a law, then if you don't take care and it is enforced rigidly, you are going to have a situation like self-censorship, which the report captures clearly, that it has produced something like this. The other bit about that conversation also is the fact that if you don't want any law in your books, there must be effort to remove them from the book so that it is not there. And that is a situation we find ourselves. How we balance these things has created a whole lot of problem for us. But as a student of politics, if you see the signs like this, then it's a cause for worrying, in the sense that no democracy gets entrenched with a weak media. So the media component is critical for the survival of a democracy such as ours, which is very nascent and so fragile. So we need to do everything possible to make sure that the frontiers of our media landscape it gets strengthened, and then we are able to ensure that the democracy that we have is nurtured properly and consolidated. If you fail to do this, then I'm afraid you are going to have difficulty in maintaining this current democracy.
And so what would be your specific call? You speak broadly about it, and later on the show we'll have a discussion on that with a representative of the GJ, among other people. But what then would be your call as far as the state apparatus is concerned, government? We're not being put in a positive light. What do you expect to see from state agencies, ministries, maybe even the president, to remedy the situation?
One is that there must be a conscious effort on the part of government to make sure that they move towards dealing with the law that still stands in our book by repealing them. We have to do that immediately so that we have a very friendly law that will enable journalists to operate freely. That is not to say that we are giving license for journalists to go overboard. Journalists must work with their ethics and be professional as well, so that at the end of the day, we all smile. Two, we also need as a people, and I'm talking about journalists, that they should be very careful when they are publishing or they are writing stories. It must be apt, it must be appropriate, and it must be truthful at all times, because that's a cardinal principle of journalism. And you don't need, in a democracy, you need to feed the people with right information, not sensational stories. And then you need to be professional and above reproach. Journalists should carry that thing along when they are in a democratic system. And we should also make sure that the law enforcement agencies, such as the police and all that, they handle journalists carefully. There is no point beating, manhandling, and all that creates all manner of problems for us in terms of ranking. That you can arrest somebody, but make sure that you follow the process through and through, and you go according to the dictates of the law. Any other thing that a law enforcement agency want to do outside this, they should remember that it will affect the rankings of this country. All of us must come on board and make sure that we work as professional journalists, and also the state apparatus must also know that they are not above the board. I want to urge people that when people breach the laws and infringe upon the rights of journalists should be able to take the police on, take them to court. After all, they are not above the law, so that we can have sanity. That is the whole essence of democracy, that you govern with rule of law and nobody is above the law.
Point made, and I couldn't agree with you more. Let's get into the Daily Graphic newspaper, Doc. Protecting jobs, income security for workers, social partners out with policies as soon. President hints on May Day. And the government and its social partners will roll out the right mix of policies to help protect jobs and incomes. Delivering the keynote address at the May parade last Sunday, President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo said, quote, "Government, with the agreement of the social partners, will shortly engage organized labor, employers, and key stakeholders to fashion the right mix of policies to help protect jobs and incomes. The policies would include the rollout of unemployment benefits or insurance." That excites me. Training and retraining of workers, extension of moratorium in payment of income and corporate taxes, and pragmatism in labor administration and enforcement. Now, Akufo-Addo, the president, also said in the era of COVID-19 and beyond, it was undeniable that we had a collective responsibility and duty of all social partners. He explained that incomes earned by workers were a function of the jobs created by employers and the creation of an enabling environment by the government to help sustain enterprise growth. He touched on conditions of service, single spine, among other things. But for you, Doc, reflecting on this matter, and again, putting it into context, where the TUC is saying, give us a 20% cost of living allowance because inflation is at 19.4%, and we won't take anything less than that. Again, reflecting on the fact that when you consider our minimum wage, 80% of it is taken by the price of 1 liter of fuel. How excited are you by these words of Mr. President?
I am not excited at all, because you see, workers must be given their due. Right. Sometimes you hear from people that Are we sure we are ensuring value for money? How much are workers, contributing to the development of this country in terms of their work?
Right.
Just posing that on the fact that we pay so much in terms of what salary towards the workers. It takes a lot from the economy and all that. Stories, I don't buy them with respect. Why am I saying that? Because if you think about a situation without a bureaucracy, without public and civil servants, there will be no country at all. All right. We agree that there are problems within the bureaucracy and the public service. We agree. And that is why there's always a conscious effort to make sure that you bring them up to scratch. And you can't afford not to give them what is their due. Look at inflation situation in the country. Look at the economic situation, and workers are struggling to survive. That in itself is, anti-productivity. So government must be sober, reflect on this thing, and then meet the workers halfway. But the blanket statement that, yes, I'm not ready to pay, I will lose this much, I think that it is very unfair and unfortunate, because workers also deserve the best. Look at the way we manage public affairs. There are a lot of waste within the system. Government must turn its attention to that place and deal with it. Look at corruption that we have. Transparency International report speaks volume about this thing. And all these things are, monies that slip through our fingers. Government must be careful and handle these things so that the workers will have their due. Of course, workers also must up their game. The issue of, apathy in work, poor job, execution and all that must be a thing of the past, so that at the end of the day, whoever goes to equity will have a clean hand to confront the government and demand your fair share.
That is interesting, the perspective you've put to it, but there are different ways of dealing with this. In fact, in recent times, on May Day, we heard Mr. President say, if you want better salaries, work, be more productive so that we can give you more as well. But that's easier said than done. Again, to practicalize it, in other jurisdictions, what do? I mean, we have clocking systems. We have all of that. So if you want to ensure that public sector workers are at post, if you want to ensure that they are doing what they are supposed to be there to do, there are mechanisms. It may cost us something, but in the long term, it will be to our benefit. So if you want to guarantee that people are working, technology is available. What is your take on that?
I agree with you. It's a solid point that if you want to deal with some of these problems that have bedeviled the civil service or public service, you need to put in mechanism to arrest this. And if you gloss over this and come and complain, I don't see the point. Governance is nothing but making use of resources, both material and human, to make life better for people. Once you are not able to do that, then I believe that the capacity of government with regard to that is weak, simply put.
My final bit on this story. Now, it interests me because in other jurisdictions, they get unemployment benefits. If you look at the United States, when COVID hit, a lot of people who were not working were getting more benefits. Even under Donald John Trump, certain measures were put in place to ensure that there are safety systems or safety nets. Here, we don't have that. So you're not working, you're not earning an income, and unless someone looks down on you looks on you with some kindness, you're going to starve. That's the reality. He talks about a rollout of unemployment benefits or insurance. I don't have the full details of it, but it's got me thinking. Our economy is wobbling. We're not on our feet. The projections are that even next year, debt to GDP is going to go higher, and that the economy is going to shrink even further. When you look at all of these dynamics and the fact that we are thinking of rolling out unemployment benefits, I don't know what form they will take, but if LEAP and the others are anything to go by, I have a lot of questions. What's your take?
It is a good idea, but I think the timing is wrong because we need to get the basics right. At the moment, the economy, as you rightly put it, is struggling. People are finding it difficult to make ends meet. We are also complaining about low productivity. Where are you going to get the additional money to fund this thing? Government must run away from that rhetoric and then plethora of promises that they are not able to meet. This will come back to haunt them during election campaign and all that. Government must shy away from that because there is no point promising heaven and earth and only to deliver something small. It doesn't help anybody, because government must know and know clearly that it doesn't have the capacity to do that. There are certain unsettled, problems that the government must fix, and fix them now, than stop, promoting all these things, promising here and there. There's no point. Governance is that you take a day at a time, reflect on that, and then come up with policies that will stand the test of time. That is all governance is all about.
Tied to that, on page 16, single spine pay policy worsens salaries. That's according to the TUC, and the Secretary General of the Congress, Dr. Anthony Yalban, has said pay differentials in the public service have worsened despite the implementation of the single spine pay policy over the past 12 years. He said the SSPP had rather distorted the salary structure, with some public sector workers on the single spine salary structure currently receiving very low salaries, which were woefully inadequate for any meaningful life in these difficult times. So here's a bit of a breakdown. The TUC Secretary General said the highest salary on the SSSS in 2022 was 7,404 cedis per month, with the lowest being 415 cedis per month. He said for the last year and this year, when public sector workers on the SSSS were offered 4% and 7% pay increments respectively, some state-owned enterprises awarded themselves over 25% salary increases, though their salaries were higher than those for workers on the single spine salary structure. So your quick take on that. The SSSS, I don't know whether you benefit from it or how it falls as a university lecturer, but what is your appreciation of it? Do you side with Dr. Yalban on this matter?
I do. You are paying somebody 400 Ghana. What is he going to do with that? An ordinary man? Right. Can he survive on that for a month? And yet we are saying that we'll protect the public purse and fight corruption. That, for me, it is untenable. You can't do this, because a hungry man, as I've always said, is a hungry man. So it's an angry man for real. So you need to be able to balance this act properly. Let us take a second look at pay structure of government officials and the public sector workers, and then do a certain cost-benefit analysis and see what we can do. Because at the moment, what we are seeing and what we are hearing is no good at all. It will not going to promote any productivity. It's going to create a lot of pain in the hearts and minds of workers, and that will not, enable them to deliver what they are supposed to deliver. It is unfortunate that we are there. But all the time I have said that if government want to do anything, it has all the resources, it has all the wherewithal to do it. But what I'm seeing that over the years, government has failed. They are not ready to settle this one. They only pay lip service to them, and then when their time get to an end, they leave office. It is very unfortunate. And then people must also be vigilant and take government on. Right. All right. If you need to go to court, go there and make sure that your rights are upheld. And that is the whole business about democracy, that you don't sit on your right and that people trample upon them with impunity, that you don't have the reasonable salary and all that. Look at the Constitution. It's like equal pay for equal work. Is that what we are seeing in this country? We have thrown it away. And government is not doing anything to salvage this situation. Workers are also sitting down quietly. Look, democracy doesn't work that way. You need to fight for your right and make sure that you work within the framework of the law.
Fight for Your Rights reminds me of a song by Lucky Dube from way back. May his soul rest in peace. But my final story from the Daily Graphic newspaper. NDC will repeal E-levy. So let me just give you some details. I'm sure you followed that story. But former President John Dramani Mahama has stated that the NDC will repeal the Electronic Transactions Act, describing it as a regressive tax which imposes hardship on Ghanaians. Quoting him, he says, "A new National Democratic Congress government, God willing, and with the votes of the sovereign people of Ghana in 2025, will repeal the E-levy Act." Simple question. Is it practical? Is it patriotic? Is it the right way to go, do you feel? And maybe to add, if Ghana's economic fortunes change for the better, much better, would you still say we should continue with the E-levy, Doc?
I am not among those who believe that we shouldn't have a tax such as E-levy. Far from it. I support E-levy But the magnitude of the taxation is what I'm worried about. And my worry is simply born out of the statement by experts in the area of economics and finance, who are saying that the ordinary Ghanaian, given the economic circumstances at the time, the best way out for us is to peg the tax between a range of 0.5 to 1%. I am in support of that proposal. But look, my thinking did not, realize anything simply because the government has passed it at a point of 1.50. Look, if you have such a system, then you are likely to have a problem because from the word go, people are not happy about such taxation. It has its own implications on governance and, productivity. That is a fact. But what NDC is saying, I disagree, and I disagree with respect. What am I saying? Because you can never run any state without taxation. It is a function of the state capacity. We call it the extractive capacity of the state. The state must find resources to run the affairs of the state. We are looking for what? Increment in pay. We are looking for better conditions of service. We are looking for infrastructure and all that. Where is government going to get resources to do this? That is not to say that government cannot think outside the box and look at other alternatives that will help us to generate more resources. But for me, I don't think E-levy is a bad tax, but the magnitude is what I'm worried about. If government can do something about it as we go along, fine. But for any party to suggest that when it comes to office, it will throw it away, I know that it is just political rhetoric. The reality will dawn on that party very soon. If their wish comes through, that they take the reins of government and govern the affairs of this country. Obviously, you can't run away from what? E-taxation, given the manner in which we manage corruption, we manage waste in the system. You have no choice than to look for something like this and then bring it on board to augment the resources that we have.
So you do not believe, from where you sit, that the NDC would do this. And we have precedent. I always go back to VAT and what the MPP did, the sequence of demonstrations, Kumi Preko, CMA Preko, VMA Preko, they came in and even increased the percentage of it. So I can understand where you're coming from. But are you saying then that some taxes cannot be removed? Because even this administration, they talk about some nuisance taxes that they took off. But of course, they also introduced other taxes. So it could simply be a game of, I take away this tax and introduce another tax.
Yeah, if that's what you are talking about, that's fine. But when you make it specific that you take away E-levy, then the conversation is on E-levy and want to see whether it's a reality that you will throw that one out. But I'm not sure that they will do that because, look at the way MPP also took the government on. I'm not sure, because if you look at the way MPP even took on the government in 1995 about what VAT, all right, one would have thought that when they gain power, they will throw it away. But they maintain it up to date. Right. A good policy is a good policy, and that is the one that stands the test of time.
Let's quickly look at this. It's something I'll discuss with Martin Kpebu as well. Minorities E-levy motion incompetent. That's in the Daily Guide newspaper, page 6, and that's according to the Attorney General, Godfrey Yabua, a dummy. And he has described an application for interlocutory injunction filed by some minority members of parliament against the implementation of the E-levy as incompetent and saddled with, quote, factual inaccuracies or uncertainties. Now, these uncertainties, the AG in an affidavit in opposition to the motion argues the plaintiffs have failed to make out a case for the Supreme Court to grant an injunction. Now, Parliament on Tuesday, March the 29th, 2022, as we know, passed the 1.5% levy on electronic transactions, with a minority walking out of Parliament in protest of the passage. Today being the 4th day of May is when this matter is going to come to the fore in court, and we'll find out whether the injunction is going to hold. But upon your reflection, some say government should have approached this matter cautiously. In fact, that they shouldn't have even started the E-levy on May Day, Labour or Workers' Day. But to just delay it, allow the court to go through the process today and see what happens. But it's been implemented. We're already paying the E-levy. How do you react to these different dynamics?
You know my position on these things, all right? Allow the court to rule. We'll come back and look at it because the proper forum is where the matter is. Let the court sit on it, make pronouncement. We'll come back and reflect on that. As a journalist, I respect these things.
Let's also look at this bit. We're going back to some labor issues and a different perspective that we've spoken of, but good to bring it up. Removing taxes on petroleum products, not the best. That's according to President Akufo-Addo. You would recall that on May Day when the Secretary General of the TUC spoke, Dr. Ba, he indicated that he would want government to erase, totally take off the taxes on petroleum products. And Mr. President responded that accounts for about 4 billion Ghana cedis of our revenue, and so they cannot be taken off. But it's interesting. We've had the likes of Kojo Poku, energy analysts, and a whole lot of them, Duncan Amwa and others, say we can indeed take off some of these taxes, especially when you're slapping the people with an E-levy. Again, when you look at the dynamics when it comes to the pricing, I've already mentioned, minimum wage, 80% of it is the cost of a liter of fuel. What do you make? What do you make of this call? And do you feel it is right when government says we simply can't touch it?
I differ. Why am I saying that? You see, governance is what? Give and take, Giorgio. Otherwise, it becomes a monologue. When experts are telling you that it's possible, and you are saying that it cannot be done, then I find it very interesting. Interesting in the sense that, look, the two can sit down, reflect on it, and then come to what? A certain agreed position that will favor everybody. But when you have government that says that, I'm not going to listen to that, then it becomes what? Either you take it or you leave it. But that I have a problem with. You see, government pusher must reflect something different. If we are looking at what suggestions like that, because professionals are professionals, they will not suggest anything that will run down this state. After all, when we lose this state, where else can we go? This is the only state that we have. So people will come with professional ideas. You need to listen, reflect on them, and make use of it. But when you jettison some of these things quickly, then it creates a problem. I have a difficulty, and it is not only this government. In the Fourth Republic, it is gradually becoming a feature that sometimes you see government pusher and you ask yourself whether government is running its own business. It's a business of the public. We owe it a duty to make contribution. So when we talk, government must have what? The hearing ears to listen to us, and then have the spirit to accommodate. Dissent is critical in a democracy. Though it is not easy, but you need to bear with that. That is the spirit that democracy work with.
Let's quickly look at this as we wrap with the Daily Guide newspaper. And if you're a student of law or a practitioner or a political scientist, you would definitely be familiar with a landmark case of Roe versus Wade. And it comes into the picture here as the Supreme Court in the United States votes to repeal abortion law. Now, protesters gathered outside the U.S. Supreme Court after news outlet Politico released what it said was a draft majority opinion from the court overturning the landmark abortion judgment known as Roe versus Wade. So just to pick out some interesting bits, in the reported draft opinion published late Monday, Alito said he believed that, quote, Roe was egregiously wrong from the start. It is time to heed the Constitution and return the issue of abortion to the people's elected representatives, the opinion actually read. But we've also heard from President Biden, who has said he has called on pro-choice lawmakers to enshrine abortion rights into law. And he says Roe has been the law of the land for almost 50 years, and basic fairness and the stability of our law demand that it not be overturned. That is President Biden. You would also recall that in the last election, that was one of the things. Evangelical Christians and others were saying Biden was pro-abortion. Trump came across as anti-abortion, and so they wanted that vote. But what do you make of it now? Crisis in the court system in the United States, or the right tangent being followed?
I'm not saying they are in crisis. No, I don't think so. Sometimes the court makes a decision and reflect on it and say that we're wrong from the first time and that we want to make corrections. There's nothing wrong. Remember, we are human beings. Right. We can make mistakes. But when we make mistakes, we should honorably admit and make corrections, because judgments are nothing but what? They're the building blocks of society. You need them to be precise at all times, because they serve as a guide for our conduct and for our behavior and all that. So for me, it is a good thing. Let us observe and let's see how it goes. If people are not interested they know what to do. They can go and test the law through a review or whatnot. But for now, I believe that, look, abortion has been a thorny issue in the United States, and this has divided the two main political parties along the two lines that we find, those who are pro and who are against. So all these things go to deepen the structures that they put in place, and also test the robustness of the political system. I am interested in when a law pans out like this, then we are knowing that we are getting democracy to become the only game in town, as Lenz put it.
Let's look at this next bit, and even as I do so, I would just go to Ghana at a Crossroads, the entire document as presented by John Dramani Mahama. I just want to pick out something he said as I state the next bit from Republic Press, okay? Because Republic Press has this bit, sack Oforiatta, Mahama tells Akufo-Addo. And I'm about to give you some of what he uses as his justification in talking about the economy. I'll just get to that briefly. But just to take from the story, former President Mahama has asked President Akufo-Addo to sack the Minister of Finance for his poor handling of the country's economy. He told the president to take heed his advice, because Mr. Oforiatta, who has been serving in the role since 2017, has not lived up to expectation in the management of the economy. According to him, Ghana's economy ranks among the worst managed in the world. It is characterized by unsustainable public debt due to an unprecedented fiscal deficit, comparatively high and still rising inflation, a rapidly depreciating currency, spiraling cost of doing business, ever-rising cost of living, high level of corruption. It goes on and on. Justified call?
Very difficult call. Difficult in the sense that it has two ways. If a minister is not performing, the president who appointed him should not waste time and throw him out quickly, so that you save the government from attacks such as this. But it is also fair to say that, look, we are looking at this second term. How far have we gone? If you look at the things that have brought us here, are you saying that all are due to mismanagement on the part of the finance minister? I disagree strongly in this regard, because some of them are beyond his ability, all right? I think that we need to reflect when we make such calls. There's nothing wrong pointing out that, yes, if there is a non-performing minister, he must be axed. That is part of the language of governance, I agree. But we need to be very careful about it, to make sure that the person that we want to throw out, whether indeed he is the right person to throw out. Otherwise, we'll be sacking everybody, and that will not get the work done. We need to balance it out properly. But I know that the president will look at this and see. My worry with this government is that we have seen difficulties from the first era up to date. And some ministers should have gone long time. You still keep them. But we want to tell the government is that when we want to maintain non-performing ministers in the office, you end up destroying your credibility, and they are not going to produce the results that you need to stand on for the next election. It's a warning to them. They must take it or leave it.
Right before we part ways, Doc, and as I introduce Martin Kpebu. Martin, a very good morning to you. Hello, Mr. Kpebu.
Yes, I can hear you. Good morning.
Great. Thank you for joining the conversation. Just hold for me for 1 minute. Doc, I just want you to look at this final bit in Republic Press. I spend 20 million Ghana cedis on humanitarian work every year. Brian Champong says so, Member of Parliament for Abetifi constituency. And he has revealed that he spends as much as 20 million Ghana cedis on humanitarian activities every year. The MP made this known when he was delivering a speech during an acclamation ceremony held in the constituency where 10 executives of the New Patriotic Party were allowed to contest unopposed. According to the MP, no member of parliament and no minister could boast of contributing to the development of party faithful more than he did. Does this come as a surprise to you? Doc, that is for you.
Okay. There's nothing wrong when a party member feels that he needs to build the support base of his party by contributing his quota to the party. There's nothing wrong. There is also nothing wrong when you realize that your people are vulnerable, they are poor, and you need to support them. What is wrong about it? It is only wrong where the source of money is wrong and where it's coming from is dubious. Then you can question that. But let us remember that this gentleman...
That precisely is my concern, because in this country, there's no paper trail. We can practically not trail, especially with people who are politically exposed. You can practically not trail. I know the banks are doing something, that there are mechanisms for people who are politically exposed, that even when you deposit money and all of that I know. But beyond that, I mean, what about not using the banking system? What about money laundering and all of that? I'm not insinuating that in his case, it is what happens. But it triggered my curiosity. We don't have the mechanisms in place to even detect, do we?
What prevents us from putting those systems in place? What are we waiting for? If we want to strengthen the frontiers of our system to fight corruption and all that. But you see, once you don't have that, you cannot complain at all. I know, the little that I know, that the gentleman is a businessman and he's doing the work genuinely. And if he has the resources and he wants to support his party, fine. I want to see a situation where they would take up other challenges within the society, help build a very strong system for our people and all that. Look at the youth. A large number of them marauding in our street without doing anything. So if there's somebody within a party who feels that, look, I have resources, instead of throwing them into business that will not help the people, and I want to build my party, why not? Let us also remember that political parties need to be nurtured, developed, so that they deliver for their people. Otherwise, there is no point following any party.
Doc, always refreshing catching up with you. You always dilate on the issues so beautifully. We're grateful for your time, Dr. Kwame Asah-Asante, and do have a good day.
I'm grateful. And my greetings to the great lawyer.
Martin Pebu, I hope you heard that.
Yes. I'm humble. Thanks, Doc. We are learning.
All right.
Most grateful.
Good.
And that was Dr. Kwame Asah-Asante, Director of the Center for European Studies at the University of Ghana. But let me now bring in Martin Pebu. We're looking at Article 1041 of the 1992 Constitution. We're also considering the bit about that interlocutory injunction that will be looked at today at the Apex Court when it comes to the minority and the fact that they feel the right processes were not followed when the E-levy bill was passed into law. I'd like you to walk us through the motion for the second reading as far as this is concerned, and why it is said that it is in contravention of Article 1041, and again, what you are looking forward to ahead of today's proceedings.
Oh, Mr. Kaku, I think I was asked to comment on the lawsuit. I've not followed the motion in Parliament.
Right. So that is fine. You can comment on what we're discussing then, the law in respect of this exact situation. They're asking for an interlocutory injunction. We can take it from there.
Yes, great. Yes. So basically, the first thing is that when you sue, there are a lot of the causes of action. So let's put it simply this way. When you take a matter to court, usually there is the right that a person can exercise to ask for an interlocutory injunction, which is to say that ask the judge to restrain, to stop, to put an end to some actions that the person you've sued is undertaking, because in your estimation, that action will kind of nullify the very reason for which you sued him. So in this context, Mr. Honorable Harun Edrusu and the rest sued that the E-levy Act is illegal because there was no quorum at the time it was passed, among others. So they said that the court should stop the implementation of the E-levy Act because the E-levy Act is illegal, so that the court would then go into the matter, all right? Yes, so that's what they did. Now, the technical bit is that the date for hearing that injunction is post the implementation of the E-levy Act. So as we are all aware, government started implementing on the 1st of May. But the motion is slated for, is it 9th or something like that, subsequently.
Right.
Yes, so then the question is, of course, you hear in legal circles and also in the public domain, we've discussed it a number of times, that when there is a motion pending, that's a motion, an application asking for injunction, even though it has not yet been formally granted, the person who is undertaking that action has to stop. Yes, that's a well-settled principle. Except that there's a certain area, when it comes to applying it in the public law area, that is the public bodies, the practice has not been consistent. Sometimes, when the motion is pending, you find the public body saying that, oh, we will not take any action, we'll wait for the court to finish. At that time, then you see that the public entity or public body would go ahead, like what government has done in this instance. So, Mr. Akako, the point is that in law, yes, when a motion is pending, generally, a lawyer would advise you that don't do anything. What the motion is seeking to say, that's the application for injunction.
Right.
What it is seeking to restrain you from doing, stop right away, even before the court considers it. And it helps a lot. But, well, you know,
so that was an option. That was an option that government could have taken, but they decided not to take that option. And as we know, from Sunday, the rollout of the E-levy started. But it is not wrong. Per what you're saying, there's nothing wrong with that. It's an option, and they took it.
Not that it's an option. So to be very straight with you, like, it's a minority opinion. So let's put it that way. What they did, it's in the legal circle. So let's say majority, minority. I'm looking for ways to express it. It's not usually, it's conduct that is frowned upon. So if you ask a lawyer, I'm looking for something that will be very objective, so that no matter who you call, even if you call people who are in their circles, the person will tell you that, oh yes, this thing is true. So it's a slender opinion. Majority of lawyers will tell you that, look, once there's an injunction, stop. After all, so in this case, you know something.
So Mr. Kwebu, before you go on, just to clarify, if you were advising this government, you would have told them not to start the execution of the E-levy on Sunday. You would have advised that they not do that.
Mr. Akaku, definitely, without batting an eyelid. So this is what you do. Yes, I would have told them to stop. But in between that, what they had to do, I also am very sensitive to the fact that government wants to raise revenue. I mean, we all know that this E-levy is like a Marshall Plan. For the history students, I hope you know what the Marshall Plan did.
I do. After the World War.
Of Europe, after the Second World War. But let's come to the point. The point is that, so because the injunction could hurt the implementation of the E-levy Act, what I would have done is that then you apply for what we call abridgment of time. So instead of the court waiting to hear it on the 9th, you apply that this matter is so urgent, so can we hear it on 30th April, 29th April?
Right.
And we all know that the Chief Justice, even, criminal matters, but now we have courts on Saturdays and Sundays.
Right, weekends.
So if you apply that in the national interest, you want the case to be heard before 1st May, the Chief Justice would have granted it. So that's what I would have done. Not to just look at the motion and then say that, oh, this will not succeed. Yes, Mr. Akaku, to be very frank with you, the chances of such a motion usually succeeding are very slim. But it doesn't mean that because it usually doesn't succeed, you can just look at it and say, oh, it usually doesn't succeed, so I'll go ahead. No, that's wrong.
So quickly on this bit, you've confirmed that if you were advising government, you wouldn't have told them to go ahead. And in fact, like you've pointed out, there was a very good alternative. You comply, but you push for an earlier hearing of that matter so that you can know what the way forward is or what the verdict is. By not doing that, do you feel in any way there was a show of disrespect by the executive to the judiciary or the judicial process?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
They showed disrespect.
Yeah. Without doubt. It's so clear. We don't even need to talk, spill more words on it. Absolutely. Very disrespectful. The option was to have asked for an early hearing. That's it.
But this is an administration that has spoken time without number about the rule of law and respect for the justicial system. In fact, they have mentioned that they are winning cases based on fact, and so you must respect the system. And you're suggesting that that same system, which has a lawyer at the helm of our affairs as executive or chief executive of the country, disrespected the judiciary?
Yes, Mr. Kaku, that is what it is. It just tells you how in human nature, a lot of the time, somebody says consistency is not a human virtue. We are not always consistent as human beings. So that's why it's playing out here.
Okay, so to wrap, we have less than a minute to go. To wrap the conversation, apart from this particular bit, the interlocutory injunction, we also have the Supreme Court looking at the payments for allowances to spouses of the president and vice. That is also happening in court today. I know we didn't prompt you about that, but when you look at the salary levels as of June 2020, and as proposed by the Emoluments Committee, 47,000 plus for Mr. President, for the First Lady, 33,270, then the Vice President, 39,000 plus, the Second Lady, 32,000 plus. What is your quick reflection on this? What are you looking forward to today in court?
2 points. I bring up the refrain. When the matter is in court, we would desist from discussing the merit. So there is a hamstring here. We cannot discuss the merit. That's the position we've chosen for ourselves as a country, that when a matter is in court, we shouldn't discuss the merit. We should give the court the opportunity to settle the issue. All right. And then number 2, so maybe if you had prompted me earlier, I would have said you could have gone for the tape. When this matter came up, I was on News File that Saturday, and we discussed it, so my opinions are out there. But those ones we could have played, because those are old comments. But for this morning, I'll reserve comment and wait for the court to finish.
Okay, to conclude, finally, our press freedom ranking, the latest from Reporters Without Borders, does not paint us in a very good light. We've dropped from 30th to 60th in the span of a year. It's the worst performance in 17 years. What is your quick reflection on that? Is it reflective of the reality on the ground?
Absolutely. Yeah, the writing was on the wall. When these things, Kaka's murder last year, and the other incidents of this freedom of the press came up, we kept saying that, hey, these things don't paint us well in the international community. We'll lose our standing. When we say we'll lose our standing in the international community, yes, this is one of the measures. And so if we've dropped to 60th, it tells you that, yes, we've just reaped what we sowed. So we've reaped what we sowed. And it may even look worse next year, because let's not forget, the ranking, this is not based on this year's arrest. No, it's not based on the terrible February we had. You remember in February, Bubi Ansah's arrest.
Right.
Then what do you call it?
Exactly. I get the point you're making. So it's based on last year and all the happenings in there, right?
So we are in for a very bad rule. So next year, it appears we may even be worse, because in February this year, the arrest of Bubi, there are done some FM attacks and all that. Okay. So that is it. It just tells you that we need to change. The fact that we are not happy with what a journalist says doesn't mean that we can just go in and use brawn, just attack him. So we have due process. Report to the National Media Commission. Okay. Or if it's so bad that you want to sue, you sue the journalist. But to attack the journalist physically and begin to mete out, your own form of discipline, it's not on. We've moved on. So we've really reap what we sowed, and it may even get worse for us next year.
Lawyer Martin Kpebu, we're grateful for your time with us this morning. Thank you so much, sir.
You're welcome.
All right. And initially we had Dr. Kwame Asah-Asante, and now we've just had Lawyer Martin Kpebu sharing his thoughts on some matters there as well. Do stay with us on the AM show. We have sports and more. Later, don't you forget, in our big stories, we're talking about this self-same matter when it comes to the latest press freedom ranking and how Ghana, well, has taken up that ignominious position. Bernice Abubeidou-Lansah will be with you to address those issues. And don't you forget, we have some questions for you as well on the E-levy and how we're faring in terms of freedom. So do stay. We'll be right back.
Hello, good morning. Thank you for staying here on the AM show. I am Bernice Abubeidou-Lansah. It's now time to discuss world press freedom, the most talked about issue right now on radio, television and everywhere. And it's because Ghana has dropped 30 places on the latest ranking of Reporters Without Borders Press Freedom Index. The country last year placed 30th out of 180 countries with a score of 78.65. This year, Ghana has placed 60 out of 180 with a score of 67.43. The report says government has shown itself intolerant of criticism. My guest will be joining me shortly for a conversation on this. Suleiman Abrahima, he's Executive Director, Media Foundation for West Africa. Liz Hefon-Asare is a media consultant, and Albert Jumfo is National Organizer of the Ghana Journalists Association. Before I bring them in, let's hear from the UN Secretary General who addressed the media on World Press Freedom Day.
Light on the essential work of journalists and other media workers who seek transparency and accountability from those in power, often at great personal risk. Throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, many media workers have been on the front lines, providing accurate, science-based reporting to inform decision makers and save lives. At the same time, journalists who cover climate, biodiversity and pollution have succeeded in bringing global attention to this triple planetary crisis. But the threats to the freedom of journalists and media workers are growing by the day. From global health to the climate crisis, corruption and human rights abuses, they face increased politicization of their work and attempts to silence them from many sides. Digital technology has democratized access to information, but it has also created serious challenges. The business model of many social media platforms are based not on increasing access to accurate reporting, but on increasing engagement, which often means provoking outrage and spreading lies. Media workers in war zones are threatened not only by bombs and bullets, but by the weapons of falsification and disinformation that accompany modern warfare. They may be attacked as the enemy, accused of espionage, detained or killed, simply for doing their jobs. Digital technology also makes censorship even easier. Many journalists and editors around the world are at constant risk of their programs and reports being taken offline. And digital technology creates new channels for oppression and abuse. Women journalists are at particular risk of online harassment and violence. UNESCO found that nearly 3 in 4 women respondents had experienced online violence. Hacking and illegal surveillance also prevent journalists from doing their jobs. The methods and tools change, but the goal of discrediting the media and covering up the truth remains the same as ever. And the results are also the same. People and societies that are unable to distinguish fact from fiction and can be manipulating in horrifying ways. Without freedom of the press, there are no real democratic societies. Without freedom of the press, there is no freedom. The United Nations is working to support journalists and media workers everywhere. 10 years ago, we established a plan of action on the safety of journalists to protect media workers and then the impunity for crimes committed against them. On World Press Freedom Day, we honor the essential work of the media in speaking truth to power, exposing lies, and building strong, resilient institutions and societies. We call on governments, media organizations, and technology companies everywhere to support these crucial efforts. Thank you.
So that's the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres speaking about World Press Freedom Day, which was commemorated yesterday, and it was under the theme Journalism Under Digital Siege. Like I mentioned earlier, I've got very competent people joining the show to have this conversation with me. Suleiman Abrahima is with the Media Foundation for Africa. We've got Liz Hayfron as well, who is a media consultant, and Mr. Jumfo, who is with the Ghana Journalists Association. Quite a lot to digest here, but we'll try and do that with the limited time we have. Thank you so much for joining the program, and let's just delve into the issues. Let me start with you, ma'am. We've heard earlier from Suleiman Abrahima, who spoke on Joy FM, saying that he's not surprised about Ghana's performance on the World Press Freedom Ranking. What will your initial reaction be?
I'm not surprised either. And it's taking a while for it to come to the fore. In the beginning, when Media Foundation for West Africa was calling on government to deal with certain issues with regards to journalists, I mean, nothing was done. Unfortunately, the Ghana Journalists Association was also very silent. If you heard about any brutalities or any harassment of journalists, you didn't have the Ghana Journalists Association come out immediately either to condemn or to solidarize with its members. And so it's not surprising that we are falling, because everybody says that it's a perception, but when you're seeing things happen, it no longer becomes a perception. And from the time that Ahmed Swale was killed to now, we've realized that a lot of things have been done against journalists and nobody seems to be taking it right to the end. We still don't know who shot Ahmed Swale. We still don't know what is going on to apprehend the culprits, and things like that just keep going on. And journalists go out for assignments, are attacked in the air, attacked by state agents, and nothing is done and nothing is said. So it's not surprising that we will fall that quickly and that low.
Let me take Mr. Jumfo's reaction also, if I have him on the line. Okay, we understand he's not ready, because I would have liked him to respond directly to the issue of the silence of the Ghana Journalists Association, because you're not the first person, ma'am, who is raising this. But let's continue the conversation. Hopefully when he joins us, I'll get his reaction to that. So with this particular ranking, the methodology was quite different from what is usually done, we are told, by the RSJ. Now, let me just run you through. So this is the list of the countries, and every color you see under each section represents something, okay? So you have the country, the score, the situation, which is their interpretation, the rank, the 2021 rank, and you have the political context, the legal framework, economic context, social context, and safety. Every color means something. Let's just come to Ghana, because that's the most important for us here. So Ghana ranked 60th. So you keep coming down. You see Ghana somewhere there. Okay. Just after Niger is Ghana. And thinking that Niger beats Ghana is quite interesting there. But the interpretation of Ghana's score is problematic. Now, the first one we have there is the political context. And you'd realize that Ghana has the bit of the brownish color highlighting that particular score, which means that it's quite a difficult situation. So if you see that color, it means it's difficult. If you see yellow, yellow means it's satisfactory. The reddish color means No, that one means difficult. The light brown means problematic, yellow is satisfactory, and red is very serious. Sorry for the mix-up there. So for our political context, Ghana is said to be having a problematic situation, and that's what we've spoken about. But there's something that we're all missing, which is the economic context. And in Ghana's score, that is our worst performance under the economic context. And we know how this also influences the freedom of journalists to do their work when they have to go somewhere and someone has to give them a little money for transportation and all those kind of things. And it's something we miss in the equation, the bit of the economic problem and how it affects our job. Just your quick thoughts on that.
Yes, and it has been over the years. I mean, journalists are poorly paid in Ghana, and therefore they seek to get additional, should I say, incomes through other means, and therefore they even go for assignments and would fight for solid, you know. And if you look at that situation, then it means that when you go on assignment and the person is taking care of your every need and giving you something to top up, you're definitely going to slant your reportage in the person's favor. So it's like he who pays the piper calls the tune. And so if there's something untoward about a particular institution, because probably you've been feeding from there, and I use feeding in quotes. I mean, if that's where you're getting some income to help with what you're getting as a wage or a salary, you are bound not to report the negative side of things with regards to that institution. And when we are supposed to be reflecting society as the media, and we are not doing that, then we are causing more harm for ourselves and for the whole nation. And when it comes to the economy, once we are getting something and we are not painting a true picture, it will affect everybody. And that has gone on for years, and there needs to be something done. I thought at a point that GJ was going to come out with certain regulations regards employing journalists, how much they should be paid as a minimum and things like that. It never seemed to work out.
Right, we've been joined by Suleiman Abrahima, who is Executive Director of the Media Foundation for West Africa. Thank you for your time this morning, sir. You have already given us your initial reactions to this report. You say you're not surprised, but I was just asking Liz about Ghana's situation when we break it down, okay, and we have it back on our screens. Ghana has a problematic situation in the political context and the issue of safety, which we've been talking about a lot of times. But our highest rank is under the economic context, which Liz has just explained to us has been a situation, I'm sure, since journalism started in Ghana, maybe. But we don't seem to know how to deal with that angle of the problem. How do we resolve this? The fact that the economic context for a lot of journalists is nothing to write home about, and it does really affect our output as journalists. Too bad. I'm told we lost him on the line there. So let me just come back to you, ma'am. Let's just move on with the conversation. We've also seen and heard government's reaction to some of these things. You mentioned it in your earlier submission about we've been told sometimes that it's just your perception. You know, we had the U.S. State Department reports which highlighted some of these issues and against journalists. We've seen even local reports being done about the state of the media here in Ghana by some organizations like the Media Foundation for West Africa. And almost every time, what we see is a resistance to these reports. How do you think this has affected our resolve to make Ghana what it was known for, you know, in terms of democracy and free speech and, you know, the free expression of media people?
We just heard Wateres say that without a free media, there is no real democracy. And therefore, when anybody tries to stifle the media, or when anybody tries to take over the media and the way they should operate, then we know that there is no true democracy. Unfortunately, in Ghana, you realize that now, even in the media, we are split down the middle. Partisanship has run through us. And therefore, even if you're working with a station that belongs to some politician, you can't be objective because you're being paid by, should I say, the largesse of the politician who owns that media station. And so you are supposed to sing the tune or follow whatever policy that that media house has. And therefore, if you want to be objective, it is not your place to be in that media house. So objectivity seems to have been thrown through the window. And everybody is being colored depending on what you say and who you're talking about and who you probably are praising. So it's a difficult situation for journalists, it's a difficult situation for the media, it's a difficult situation for Ghana. If we don't move away from that, if we do not leave journalists to play their roles properly, if we do not leave them to be objective, and we think that everyone should be biased and have a color, then we are not going to be having a very good democracy, because then the media would not be playing their role rightfully and properly.
I'll have you hold on, ma'am, because we have Suleiman Abrahima back on the line. Thank you for joining the program, sir. So I know that you've gone through this report, so I won't belabor the point in terms of the breakdown using the various indicators in this particular methodology. But let's talk about the economic context, because it's usually not factored in the equation when we are discussing press freedom, but it plays a very major role. And so you just had Liz talk about polarization, and this is as a result of the kind of people who invest in our media space, who pay the journalists, and so you don't really have a choice. How do we ensure that this issue is dealt with to help our ranking get better as we move on?
Well, first of all, I think in terms of the ranking and the economic and some of the other factors, I don't see how they have changed from previous years to now. Since the liberalization of the airways, and particularly from the year 2000, a lot of the media outlets in our country have always been owned by actively partisan persons. Regional chairman, constituency chairman of either NDC, MPP, or parliamentarians, and so on and so forth. So that, to a large extent, hasn't changed. Every party comes to power and they parcel out frequencies for their own people. In terms of the economic factors, again, the challenge of how much journalists are paid and the sustainability of the news industry continues to be something that remains a challenge. And I don't think that it was different from last year than it is now. Indeed, COVID has had a significant impact on the sustainability of media organizations across the world as a result of limited advertising and all of that. But that did not get us to drop even in the year of COVID itself. I think what is accounting for our significant drop is the political context. And that is what we really have to do a lot about. In terms of the other context, economic and so on, the impact is to a large extent on professionalism and sustainability.
Yeah, but the report says otherwise, because they say the economic context is difficult. The political and safety contexts are problematic. So the report says otherwise.
Yes, I'm not saying that we discount that completely. Indeed, it's an issue. But the point I am making is that if you look at countries like Sierra Leone, that has become 41st from 75. And last year, we issued a report in which we were commending the government of Julius Maada Bio for improving the press freedom environment significantly. And not surprisingly, they moved from 75th to 41st ahead of Ghana. Are we saying that the economic situation in Sierra Leone is better than it is in Ghana? My answer would be no. If you look at Burkina Faso, Burkina is now 41, Sierra Leone 46, I should say. Burkina is 41. The economic conditions in Burkina far better than it is in Ghana? I would say no. Niger is ahead of Ghana. Ivory Coast is ahead of Ghana. Cape Verde is ahead of Ghana. I don't think that these countries are ahead of us because their economic conditions are better than that of Ghana. I am saying, yes, it is a factor in terms of assessing the press freedom conditions of a country. If the economy is doing well, the economics of the media is well grounded, it helps in terms of what journalists can do, how far they can go, how bold they can become, how critical they can be, and all of that. But I'm saying that in terms of the factors that have accounted for our drop, because if you read the other countries that are ahead of Ghana, the economic factors that they talk about in Ghana is the same. But our problem is the political context in terms of why we have dropped. That is the major factor that has accounted for, our situation from number 30 in the world to number 60, and from third in Africa to number 10.
Right, Mr. Brima, whenever this issue of press freedom comes up, there are always those who throw in the bit of, but you also ought to be responsible, you also ought to be professional. And sometime you said, in the name of media freedoms, it has become very common to hear or see people baselessly abuse others on radio, TV, or online. There are pure fabrications, outright lies, and unsubstantiated allegations in sections of the media, and these are perpetrated with disdain. It is sometimes done as if to suggest that the laws of Ghana guarantee both media freedom and media recklessness. So clearly you identify a problem here, but you have in the past mentioned that, well, if you have a problem, you don't go the criminal way. Sort it out in a civil manner. But how do we also address this issue when it comes to media freedom, as you yourself captured, comparatively?
Well, indeed, I have had cause to raise concerns about our standards of journalism. I've had cause to raise concerns about dwindling professionalism, high levels of unethical conduct, and that is why, for example, ahead of every election, we do monitoring of the media as far as hate speech and indecent.
Sorry, Mr. Brima, I'm just losing you there. It's quite difficult to hear you now.
Can you hear me?
Yes, much better. Hello? Hello? Well, too bad we lost him there. We seem to have a challenge with that line. We'll try and work it and get Mr. Brima there to give us his reaction to those who talk about the fact that the media brings this on ourselves when we don't do what we're supposed to do professionally. But I still have Liz Hefron-Asari. She's a media consultant, still discussing this issue of press freedom in Ghana and how we've declined over the years. In fact, a UNESCO report says more than 85% of the world's population has seen a decrease in press freedom in their country over the past 5 years. So let's speak realistically, also considering the indicators, and I come back to the indicators because that is what cumulatively got us here. So they add all those indicators and Ghana ranked 60th. So if we take them and address them individually, then we can see how we can improve on our score. So I'd like you to take it one by one. On the political front, the legal front, economic, and safety. How do we deal with this? How do we ensure that the work of journalists are not stifled in all these contexts?
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes. Hold on, ma'am. Apologies for that. Yes, I can hear you, Mr. Brima.
Okay, so I don't know if the question you just asked was to me or to
You can also answer that, and I'll take Liz's reaction after yours.
Well, first of all, in terms of the economy or the economics of the media, the dynamics are quite diverse. First, we are a third world economy, and yet we do have almost 400 radio stations broadcasting now, several print media outlets, multiple online outlets, close to 100 television channels on air. So one of the questions to ask is, do we have an economy that can support this kind of multiplicity of media outlets? And my response would be that that is one of the challenges. And once we don't have an economy robust enough, strong enough, big enough to service the media industry, what then happens is that you begin to see a lot of people doing the clickbait journalism, a lot of people doing sensationalism, just so they can attract the numbers to be able to either get online advertising or get offline advertising. So that's certainly one of the critical areas. And therefore, we need to look at which media outlets are giving us the independent journalism that we want, the critical journalism that we want, the journalism that really makes democracy to thrive, and how can we support them. But beyond that, if you also, getting into the political aspect, if you have a government that becomes quite intolerant and would want to use its economic power to stifle critical journalism, what then happens is that media outlets that would do well, that has the public support, that has the confidence of the public, are then stifled economically because government will not want to do business with you. And we are on a continent where about 80 to 90% of the advertising revenue comes from the state. Ministries, departments, agencies, and so on and so forth. And governments even actually have the power. And I'm not talking about the government of Ghana alone. Governments have the power to even dictate to some private sector industries where not to advertise and which media not to do business with. So certainly the economy or the economics of the media is a very critical thing that we have to look at. Then, of course, the safety issues is so important. If a journalist is murdered, national security is storming media houses, police storming media houses, journalists getting beaten, no redress. And all we do is to talk about it. Oh, we believe in press freedom. We want robust media as opposed to silence in the media, and nothing is happening. That certainly cannot help. When all of a sudden we are seeing the frequent application of an archaic law on publication of false news. And this is not my choice. This is not my word. The president himself, while he was in opposition, said that law is actually even unconstitutional. And you see the same person in power and that law is being used more than ever before. That certainly is problematic. Then, of course, the professionalism aspect is critical. But we need to say no amount of unprofessional conduct should justify physical attack and abuses on the media. In fact, as journalists, we are human beings. And it is for purposes of regulating human conduct that we have laws in place. So the expectation is that when someone feels defamed, for example, that unprofessional conduct that was put out by Bobie and Sa, saying, false things about the First Lady, the laws are there. The First Lady could have gone to court to sue for defamation. Eventually, what happened? The guy and his station were taken to the National Media Commission. The commission sat on the matter and came up with a verdict that indeed what happened was unprofessional. The station and the journalist must apologize. If that option was there, why did we have police storming the place in the first place? So I think we cannot justify any acts of attacks on the basis of, the journalists are becoming reckless, the media are unprofessional, and so on and so forth. What for me is critical is that as a country, let us accept that we are going backward. The gains we have made, we are rolling them back. And we need to set up, acknowledge the fact that things are not going well, and collectively we work towards improving our conditions. Because, look, critical media is required for a thriving democracy. When press freedom dies, democracy will die. We cannot say that we love democracy, we want our democracy to thrive, democracy is threatened, and then when it comes to press freedom, we say, oh, it's okay if journalists are being abused, if the media will be attacked, and so on and so forth. That cannot help us build the democracy that we want.
Right. Same question to you, Liz. How do we deal with the issue on every front?
Sulemana has addressed mainly all the thoughts that I had, except to add that when it comes to professionalism, there's a lot begging to be done. There's a lot we need to do. And so then my question goes to, is everybody who is in the media space a professionally trained journalist? And the answer is no. You have people that are picked up and put there because they probably want a job, and then you can give them anything and they'll be in that space. Again, when it comes to professionalism, and I think that that is a major thing for me, the kind of people we invite for interviews, the kind of people that we have on our panels when we're doing discussions, has whittled down to only politics. And we dwell so much on politics, and therefore we call members of parliament from the two sides of the house. We call executives of political parties to discuss issues that probably have to do with the economics of the nation, instead of looking for some economist to come and sit down and tell us exactly where we are going wrong and what we can do right. And so a lot of it borders down onto us as professionals. The economics and the political, yes. And as for the political, like Mr. Bremer said, things that were spoken against in the past is what is being done now. And so we need to work at that. But again, I don't see journalists standing up for journalists when it comes to things like that. We just sit back and watch. And if we are not defending ourselves as a group, then who should come and defend us? If we can't do it for ourselves, who are we waiting for to come and do it for us? And that's why I say that GJA has failed woefully. Because I believe in all this thing that, apart from putting out
statements
of condemnations of the act, we should go further and make sure that the right things are done. And if we have the laws on the books, and we ourselves as journalists don't know the laws, then it behoves on us to study and know exactly what our rights are and stand up for our rights.
Well, you both have admitted that polarization is an issue. In her inaugural lecture, Professor Audrey Gajikpo spoke about the broadcasting bill and the fact that we've been sleeping on it for a very long time, and also who owns the media, who gets a license, who approves who should own a media house. There's no clarity in that space. And so gradually we're seeing deep lines. You're either black or white, and that's how society perceives us. Even when you're given an objective reaction or doing a story objectively, you're painted, because that's what we are becoming. How do we, on the regulation side, because we cannot just say that, like Mr. Bremer said, we're human beings, there needs to be regulation. How do we ensure that the space is regulated such that we don't have this polarization, which affects us all, in the long run?
That is a difficult one for me to answer. I can't think off my head, apart from the fact that we can be our own peer pressure groups, making sure that if somebody steps out of line, we would call the person out. We are not ready to call ourselves out. And then there are those in the media who think that because they belong to a particular media house, they are better placed to talk about certain issues than others. I think that there also needs to be a lot of refresher courses for all journalists across board, because with the with technology and all the onlines that we're doing, you realize that nothing gets hidden. It comes out even before its time. So there's a need to upgrade our skills. There's a need for us to be abreast with what is going on across the world. And if we do that, and if we act as peer mentors to each other, I believe that we'll be learning from each other and we'll be able to stay above water. The thing is that we always think, I didn't want to use that word, but again, let me just use it, because a lot of us are stomach journalists. As long as our stomachs are full, we are fine. And so we go ahead and do anything, anywhere, and say anything and think that we can get away with it. Again, where your foot is placed with regards where you're working, what station you're in, whether the station is owned by somebody who is in the ruling government, gives us that kind of false confidence that we can do anything and get away with it. And I think that it should not be. Our ethics committees are not working. Nobody is being called to our ethics committees. The NMC, like we have said in the past, it can deal with your issues, but it really can't bite. We have the law courts, but we are not prepared to go, because the moment you're in court, even if it's a civil case, everybody starts crying foul. But then that is what we should be doing. We should be using the legal space to our advantage, and we are not doing that.
Mr. Primer, there are those who are of the view, though extreme, that politicians, political parties, political party affiliates should not be allowed to own media houses. What would your reaction be?
No, I don't think so. I think, well, politicians are citizens. And if they choose to own radio stations or media organizations, that is not a bad idea. Around the world, politicians own media outlets. I think what is important is, as was mentioned a while ago, a mechanism or a framework to regulate the broadcast industry and to strengthen regulation of the media sector. Look, we all know that the National Media Commission is the body that is supposed to do this critical work that we are talking about. The Commission, over the years, has indicated it is underfunded, it doesn't have the resources, and all the other constraining factors. That, for me, is important, that we begin to look at how we advocate for the Commission to be resourced. But I should also say that it is not enough for an institution like the NMC to continuously say, oh, we are under-resourced. And therefore, then we see very, very little from them. The little that they have, what is being done? I have always had concern that, till date, the National Media Commission doesn't even have a website. That students can even go there and say, okay, what is the mandate, who are the past commissioners, and this and that, and so on and so forth. So I think that it's important that the Commission also up its game a bit, even though we acknowledge that there are factors that constrain what it can do. I think that the Ghana Journalists Association is also an important and perhaps one of the foremost institutions when it comes to press freedom and the media in our country. Unfortunately, as we all do know, over the last few years, the GJ has not been in the shape and form that we all expect it to be. And I think that as journalists, it will be quite embarrassing that we who say we want to hold others accountable when it comes to leadership and all of that are unable to put our house in order. And so I would urge the leadership of the GJA and journalists in this country for us to all come together and see how we can really strengthen the Ghana Journalists Association. Because in the past, when you read many of the reports about agitation and defense of journalists, you would always find the GJA being one of the foremost and often cited institutions. As I said, I don't think that in the last couple of years, the GJA has been what it has to be. It's a human institution. There can be challenges, but I think we need to all work together to ensure that we strengthen that association. And as Media Foundation, contrary to what perhaps people may often think, we are a lot more committed to having a stronger DJA than people would think. I mean, we are strengthening the associations in other countries. So why would we not be happy to have a stronger DJA in our country? Indeed, we are extremely busy in other countries on multiple projects than we are here in Ghana. And so if the DJA is strong, it helps our advocacy and it helps improve the press freedom in our country. And I think we need to dedicate some time and effort towards that. So the regulation is important. The regulatory institutions, very important. But the NCA, which passes out the frequency, I think that is where the focus must be. The last time we were even asking them about the list of frequencies, they said they will have to do research to be able to establish how many frequencies they have given and who they have given. And that should tell you the mess in which we are in. So a lot more effort has to also be done at the NCA's level so that we can sanitize the airwaves for all of us.
Thankfully, we've gotten the national organizer of the Ghana Journalists Association, Mr. Albert Jumfo. He joins the program via phone. Thank you for your time this morning. The GJA has been mentioned quite a lot during this discussion, and we are glad to have you here to respond to some of the concerns. And the major concern is that, well, the GJA is not strong enough, you know. We've had issues in the past. Basically, all we've seen is a statement asking that, you know, issues be investigated. But, I mean, aside from that, there appears to be no other real work being done in terms of ensuring that press freedom becomes a reality on the ground. What's your response to that, sir?
Okay, thank you. Thank you, my dear. And good morning to your viewers. Yes, I'm listening to my brother Suleiman, my good brother. I expected that Suleiman will concentrate on Media Foundation than attacking DJA. But let me say that, yes, he is not far from right. We have faced a number of challenges, and I can assure you that we are trying to resolve and put our house together. We are to fight for the welfare of journalists. And if you are not able to put our house together, how can we do so? We all know, even as we speak now, the political parties are preparing for their internal campaign. They need the constituency elections, regional, and then these are periods where journalists are exposed to more threats. And I think that it is important that as a media organization or as a body, we come together, we put our house together, and stand up and fight against some of these pressure schools, some of them guardians and threats against journalists. So I agree with Suleiman on that point, but I can tell you that the DJ has done a lot. It is under the same DJ that clock first, or that actually caused Ghana to be the number one on the World Press Freedom Index in Ghana in 2018. Notwithstanding, after that, there has been a lot of threats, a lot of attempts to gag journalists in this country. We all know that after the repeal of the Criminal Libel Act, there's this act called False Publication Act, which the security agency is trying, has been using to gag journalists trying to discharge their work. And I think these are things that we need to fight. And Media Foundation has a role to play. All of us, all the stakeholders, not only Ghana Journalists Association. But I can tell you that our contribution has been very enormous. That saw Ghana media or journalism clock the first on the World Press Freedom Index in 2018. That's what has hosted the 70th or maybe the World Press Freedom Day in the same year. And this is a very good achievement enough to say that the media in Ghana has done so well until recently when we have come under severe attack. And the reason why this year's theme, which is journalism and the digital teach, is very more important. And I think that we have to deal with the theme either than going back to issues of, I believe, he may be talking of our drop from 30 to 60, which I think I will touch on, and I will give a number of reasons why I think that this phenomenal drop, is a very serious issue that needs to be tackled. But I would expect that we deal with the team, the world, this year's 2022 World Press Freedom Day team, journalism and the digital age. Thank you, my dear.
Okay, well, that's an interesting one, but we choose to deal with this particular issue today. And Ghana performed, our worst performance was under the economic sector, followed by political context, safety, and then we had some, fairly good performance under the legal framework and the societal context. But let me find out from you. Yesterday was World Press Freedom Day. What did the GJA do?
Yes, unfortunately, yesterday, as we all know, usually the West, in terms of the Islamic holidays, it doesn't fall on the same thing. Some celebrate the holiday on the 2nd, others do so on the 3rd. Unfortunately, in Ghana, yesterday was holiday, and we, even in the world, most countries in the world did not celebrate the World Press Freedom Day, though the global celebration, which is happening in South America, Uruguay, went on. Most of the countries are actually celebrating the day, which is a working day. So the D-Day also, just as I indicated, we are also celebrating ours today at the Ghana International Press Center. There is going to be a symposium, a program this morning at 9 a.m. To speak on the theme, journalism and the digital age, and also to celebrate our gallant men and women in the industry who have fought for our press freedom and for our democracy. So we are not living this year's World Press Freedom Day unattended. It is happening live at the Ghana International Press Center.
Right, I appreciate your time here this morning. Albert Jumfo is national organizer with the Ghana Journalists Association, responding to some concerns raised by my two other guests, Liz Hefo-Nasari, who's a media consultant, and Suleiman Abrahima with the Media Foundation for West Africa. Before I let you go, I would just like to take your comments on the RTI since it was passed. And also because we know that press freedom involves free access to information, and we work with information. Sometimes getting this information can be really daunting, and so a lot of times we pursue projects, pursue stories, and you have to shelf it because you're not getting the information you want. You would have thought that the RTI would have at least shored up our figures a bit in terms of our scores when it comes to press freedom, but unfortunately that's not the case. So let me quickly take your thoughts on that list. Since the RTI was passed, do you think that we have seen much improvement in the quality of our stories, getting access to information? There have been a few cases the RTI Commission has sat on and ruled in the favor of journalists, but just let me know what your thoughts are, Liz.
The RTI has started work, and the commission is in place and has been dealing with some cases like you have just said. I think that there's still a lot of education to be done on the RTI so people would know that access to information is a right. A lot of people have, in the past, held on to information, and I'm talking about those in public institutions, and they're still doing so today. So even if you go to seek information, they are willing to give you the information. But the information is not the institutions. The information belongs to the people. It's been paid for by the taxpayer already. So you have a right to know. And it will behove on those institutions to know that apart from the exempt clauses in the Act, whatever information you have, you should put it out. Again, if you're giving information out to somebody already and somebody else comes to ask you for the same information, that information is out in the public already. So I don't see why institutions are still holding fast onto the information they have. What we need to do as a people is to test the Right to Information Act by making sure that when we go for information and we are not getting it, we report to the commission and see what the commission can do. And so a lot more education needs to go out. Some education has gone out. Some regions have had educational and training programs, but it needs to be nationwide. Again, the commission is constrained economically. Finances are not coming through. You need a lot of money to roll out these things. And if you don't have it, then it becomes a problem. But there has been a starting point. The Media Foundation for West Africa has been very helpful. And so I believe that the Rights to Information Act should be tested and should be worked on so that it gains ground. And I'm sure that when it gains ground and people know that they can access information easily and freely, it will augur well for our democracy and for our development.
Sulemana, how has the RTI helped us or not in access to information and doing our jobs freely? Do I still have Mr. Brima on the line?
Hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yes. No, let me just start by saying I find it really unfortunate that my friend Albert, interpreted my comment of saying that we need to all work together to strengthen the GJA as constituting a disparaging comment about the GJA. I think that is a very, very unfortunate interpretation. I did make the point that the GJA is a prominent institution. We all need to work together to strengthen that institution. And the challenges confronting the GJA is not something that anyone can deny. Now, having said that, in terms of the RTI, I think it is one of the most progressive steps that have been taken by this government. And we must commend the government for its work so far on the RTI. The commission has been established. The commission has demonstrated so far that it is intended to enforce the powers that it is given and to perform the functions assigned to it as effectively as possible. I mean, so far, I have been very, very impressed and sometimes even surprised by how much the RTI Commission is able to do. I think that there is also a genuine commitment on the part of government to ensure that the RTI law works. In fact, last week, the Ministry of Information, the Minister, invited the Media Foundation to share our experiences with the ministry. And the Minister was there, his deputy was there, the RTI lead was there. And for me, it was a clear indication of the extent to which the government wants to see the RTI law working. It's quite early days. There certainly will be challenges, as we are witnessing now. But if you look at what is happening in Ghana now versus what is happening in Liberia, that got its law in place over a decade ago, Sierra Leone more than a decade ago, Nigeria close to a decade now, and so on, you would notice that Ghana is doing fairly well. And the indicators point to the fact that if we continue to proceed on the path that we are on, we would certainly derive the benefit of having the RTI law in place. Yes, government agencies continue to dilly-dally, they don't want to give all of that. But as I said, I believe all those are signals of the fact that it is still early days, people don't understand the law, what it will do, and so on and so forth. My disappointment has been on the part of journalists. And the fact that journalists are not resorting to the law as one would have expected. We have done series of training for journalists on the law in Accra, in Kumasi, in Tamale, and sometimes in some districts. And one would have expected that a lot of journalists will resort to the law to get information to do their stories. At the Fourth Estate, which is a project of the Media Foundation, a lot is being done, and we are seeing the extent to which the RTI law can be used to generate information for stories that would sometimes reveal a lot of things that would be of public interest. So on the RTI, as I said, I think the government deserves a lot of commendation, but we all need to continue to work and help strengthen the commission, as well as educate the public and public institutions so that the law would work as intended.
Mr. Brahma, before coming into the studio to have this discussion, I passed through the Joy FM studios and we were discussing the Press Freedom Index. And
I am struggling to hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I'm saying that just before I came into the studio to have this discussion, I passed by the Joy FM studio and we were discussing this issue of press freedom, but we took a different angle, and it has to do with how the citizens themselves sometimes abuse journalists, do not protect journalists enough when we step out to do stories. It reminds me of some time ago when one of my colleagues had to be pulled by a taxi driver into a vehicle when he was being beaten by supporters of a certain political party. Beyond the politicians, how do you think the society responds to the issue of the safety of journalists and how they contribute sometimes to the abuse that could in turn, make a lot of journalists fearful and prevent them from doing their work as they ought to?
Well, I think that one of the major problems that we have always highlighted in our report in terms of non-state actors taking the laws into their own hands and abusing journalists and all of that. That has a number of causes, but one of the primary causes that is often cited is the fact that when people lose confidence and trust in journalists and in journalism, then they resort to those kinds of abuses. And that should often get us to begin to reflect, how can we get the confidence and trust of the public? So that is number one. But the most important thing is that crime is crime, regardless of the perpetrator. What we do expect is that when crime is committed, the laws do work. When a citizen decides to slap a journalist, that's a criminal offense. And when it's a criminal offense, it is not for me to go to court and sue for defamation or something like that. It becomes a matter of the state versus the perpetrator. And so if we are seeing the state reaction, so for example, Kennedy Japan, who is not a security person, decided to incite violence against Wale. Months later, he's murdered. Then incite violence against Erastus Asaredonko. And then we had to petition the Minister for National Security, Parliament. We were invited by the National Security Minister for a meeting. We brought Erastus. Some assurances were given. But why is that Member of Parliament not facing the law? So for me, that is the problem. If individuals beat up a journalist, the law must work. If a Member of Parliament does the wrong thing, the law must work. But when we see impunity, as they say, impunity begets impunity. This person slaps a journalist, he goes scot-free. During the election, somebody was shot, a journalist was shot. So far, we don't know how far things are going. Latif Idris was brutalized. We don't know how far things are going. I mean, these are the problematic things when impunity becomes the order of the day. So when we are not saying that all these acts are perpetrated by politicians or political activists or national security operatives or state actors and so on and so forth. Non-state actors are also on the front lines of abuses against journalists. But the state has a responsibility to make sure that the laws work, to make sure that impunity is fought against, to make sure that people who perpetrate crime against not just journalists alone, doctors, nurses, teachers, and so on, people who commit crimes against them are brought, to justice. And that is the only way we can have sanity and ensure that our democracy continues to thrive and consolidate in the manner in which we all want it.
You mentioned mistrust as being one of the reasons people may attack journalists. What do you think is causing that mistrust?
What do I think?
What do you think is causing the mistrust?
Well, it is because a lot of people will tell you, well, we know journalism to be about holding the duty bearers accountable to us, making sure that our concerns are being addressed, making sure that it represents our interests, and so on. So if increasingly what we are seeing are reports and conduct by journalists that is actually intended to support the same duty bearers that the masses think that we would hold them accountable, and acts of corruption are not being reported, injustices are not being reported, abuse of state resources are not being reported, and all they see is MPP, NDC, this MP says this, that MP says this, minister says this one says use your brain, this one says you are square. And those are the things that we continue to report. I don't know how that would attract the confidence and trust of the mass. But the people know the value of journalism. The people know that if journalists do their work and do it well, a lot of the things that are happening that undermine their interest will be addressed. So the cause for me is people not feeling that we are serving their interests in the way that they think it should be. And we need to therefore revise our notes and begin to work in a way that serves the public's interest, rather than the interests of those whose actions and conduct are undermining the interests of the public.
So just a quick observation here, and I'll take Liz's reaction to that, then I'll come back to you even as we wrap up this conversation. So you talk about not doing their work well. Earlier, Ma'am, you also spoke about the issue of professionalism. There's one thing I've observed. Enter many newsrooms in Ghana and you won't see somebody who's been doing this job for 25 or 30 years. Everyone is getting out of the job. There is this migration, you know, into other sectors, which causes a lot of deficiency, if I may say, in our newsroom. So you have very young people who are ambitious, who want to do the job, but you know, there's not a lot of experience, and even in the newsroom, there usually aren't a lot of people to even learn from firsthand. How do we solve this issue? How do we bridge the gap? How do we deal with the issue of quality? Because you enter other sectors and there's someone who's been working there for 30, 40 years with a lot of rich experience, you know, that influences the job, influences even discussions when it comes to online discussions, radio, television, and all that. How do we deal with that problem?
It comes back to the economics of the institutions that are media institutions. And Rima did talk about the fact that our economy as a nation cannot support the number of media organizations that we have, and therefore it becomes difficult. And therefore, if you have individuals owning and therefore running the media house, and you have adverts that are not coming to you as a private organization because you're not leaning to the government's side, then you have a problem. You don't see a lot of people in the media over very long periods of time because everybody seems to use it as a stepping stone to develop a certain career and then move out, because our media has not grown over the years. And you can't, when you get to a certain stage in the media today, you realize that there's a lot more you can do, but if you have a family to look after, if you have certain things to do and the monies are not coming in for you to be at the standard that you want to be, you're definitely going to look for something else that is lucrative and move out. And that is what has happened over the years. You have a few people who have stayed in for a very long time, but when you look at them and where they are today, you realize that because the space as the media as a whole has not grown, they don't seem to have grown either. They might be doing well, but they might be doing well on a business front because they are running the media organization properly and are making money as a result of adverts, or they have something else on the site that they're doing, and therefore the media is not their only source of income. To be able to get people to stay in the media and to continue for a very long time, we need to build our media organizations to be strong enough to hold the people that are working there. When people are working in the media and they are not get their take home is like 2,000, when they have colleagues in other organizations that are probably taking home 15,000, you're bound to have them migrate. And we have not paid much attention to the media. The media has been there, the media has been working, but the investments in the media has been next to nothing. And you can't get very qualified people remaining if you're not prepared to spend. And so you'd have people move. When you talk about the new crop that have come in who are ambitious, they definitely would start very well, would probably get to a certain stage and would also realize that they're probably being underutilized or think that they can step out and get and do better. So we need to build our media organizations and make them very strong.
Persons like yourself, there could be some mentoring program for young ones like myself, so that we can also be given some.
I could tell you what caused me to migrate from reporting, but I'm still in the media. I haven't moved out of the media. Mm-hmm. The only thing is that I'm not doing straight up report.
Yes.
You know, and it only happened because I got to a stage where I thought that governance was an issue. I went and did governance and leadership with the mind to come and help build back the media. But when you come back to really build back the media, there's a lot that needs to go into it.
Interesting. We'll see how we can work around that, because the quality in the newsroom is needed. Thanks very much for your time this morning. Liz Hefron-Asare is a media consultant, and we've been talking about press freedom here in Ghana and the fact that Ghana has dropped 30 places from our previous ranking, now ranked 60 in the world. And we've just done a breakdown for you. Earlier, I also had Suleiman Abrahima with the Media Foundation for West Africa, and Albert Jumfo, who is organizer of the GJA. Well, the head of the EU mission here in Ghana, Echad Razali, says press freedom is a key value for democracy and it must be nurtured by all stakeholders.
Press freedom is a key value for democracy worldwide. This is the case as well in Ghana. And for our case, we have followed with great interest and great care the follow-up to this case, because this was an important development. And last year, or this year, the government has adopted a right to information legislation, which only reinforces the press freedom, and we are supporting that very much, and we are welcoming that very much. So, as we've said, freedom, expression, journalism are key values, key capital to nurture. We have to do it together. You have your role to do that. We have our assessment, but the key actors are the Ghanaian institutions.
Already the international ratings are not giving us a good picture in terms of how we're performing when it comes to guaranteeing the safety of journalists. Do you feel that this is an area we should improve on?
No, this is part of the many responsibilities of the Ghanaian authorities, the Ghanaian journalists, the Ghanaian watchdogs, and other people who are looking after this area. Yes.
The opposition political party here in Ghana feels that there's a culture of silence which is creeping into our society, and there would be a need for the international community to intervene and to help deal with the issues. They've, for instance, roped in the courts, claiming that it's not as independent as it should be. Is the EU concerned about this? Have you received the reports, and what are you likely to do to mediate and to ensure that there is peace in this country?
What we are likely to do is absolutely not meddling into that development, because this is the responsibility of the Ghanaian authorities, and as far as I'm concerned, there is no civil war in Ghana. So there is absolutely no reason for us to impose ourselves into a situation. There is rule of law, there are watchdog bodies, there is an independent justice, and everybody is in a position to make its claim and to get justice served. So I would like to challenge the very idea that we would have a responsibility or we would have a role to play in order to make things right into the Ghanaian landscape.
But the fear is we've exhausted all internal mechanisms, and that's why the main opposition political party is raising such concerns. Are you not? Don't you feel that you're lukewarm about this? There's a need at least to have some influence to try and coming and try and ensure that
I'm very surprised that in 2022, in the very country of Nkrumah, you are asking for external actors to have an influence on Ghana. Is it what you are saying? Are you calling external actors to have an influence over Ghanaian government or Ghanaian country?
This is what mediation is what we need. If the opposition political party had an option,
I don't believe this is a serious discussion.
They wouldn't have resorted to the international community.
No. I don't believe in international intervention into a sovereign country's affair.
The fear is we may go the path of other countries in the sub-region if you don't come in to at least speak to all the powers that be.
We'll see how it develops, but I don't believe this is the direction that discussion will go.
Thank you for staying on the AM show. We'll be taking your comments and reactions to this latest report on Ghana's press freedom and how we are faring in that aspect. We'll be announcing the phone line shortly, but you can get onto our Facebook page. We've posted a question whether you think government is stifling freedom of speech. I would like to hear what you think about that. My colleague Kojo Brace has also been speaking to some of you on this issue.
I can express myself without fears, but every expression have a limit. Yes, but as I'm saying, it have a limit. Make sure whatever you are going to say, you have evidences or you have records about it. For example, you can say, let's see, our president's wives has built hotel. Make sure you have that. You make sure you have the documents. You have seen the document of the land, and you have seen our first lady putting a signatory on that property or on that agreement before you be comfortable saying. But if you are not able to prove or to come out with evidences, then sorry, you can't say it.
Okay. Yeah. I'm able to express myself freely because I think we have the freedom of speech in the country, so why not?
But the Press Freedom Index says that Ghana has dropped from 30th position to 60th because government is not, is not open and allowing people to criticize it freely. What do you make of it?
On social media, I think we are able to do or say what's on our mind freely. Just that nobody really pays heed to us because they think it's just social media. But aside that, I don't think there's any open space where you get to make your complaints. But on social media, we are able to do that freely.
But what do you make of the news you hear that a journalist has said this and then the police are after him, or a Ghanaian has said this and the police is after him? What do you make of all of this development?
I think it's not fair. As they say, we have the freedom of speech. So why would you say we have freedom of speech if you know you come after us? Then you are indirectly telling us that we can't say what's on our mind. We have to keep quiet, so it's not fair.
Chief, what do you make of press freedom in Ghana?
You know, this time it's very difficult to talk. When we are talking, even if you are expressing a genuine reason, giving a genuine reason, they will tell you you are in opposition. And that is making everybody fear to talk. And you cannot express yourself freely because you are afraid. You don't know who will take you on. And you don't know what will follow when you are talking. So to me, I don't express myself in the public because you don't know who is there and then what are their political colors. So the political arena in the country now is making us to be afraid of expressing ourselves freely.
Relatively speaking, for the rest of Africa and the third world, I think it's relatively, you can express what's on your mind. So there's fairly much freedom of speech here, comparatively speaking. But this is true everywhere, that there are limitations on what you can say. So in West Africa, and maybe in Africa as the whole continent. I believe Ghana is above average. There are flaws, but that's true with everything. So that's it in a nutshell.
We need to improve upon it. Because it does not speak well of us. We should be able to enjoy press freedom. People should be able to talk their minds without looking back that somebody is following them. So I wish the government has to be up and doing. Yeah.
As a Ghanaian, how do you feel about your ability to talk and criticize government without fear?
If it is constructive, why not? I should be able to speak out, because as a citizen and a voter who gives the government the power to be in power, I think if there's something going wrong and I feel it is wrong, I have to say it without fear.
In the current dispensation, do you feel you have that same freedom to talk without fear of government intimidating you?
Events unfolding creates the impression that people are not very open to speak out, because they feel if you speak, you'll be picked up. And so it doesn't go well.
Grace there speaking to some of you, varied opinions, but let's get more. Let's get onto our Facebook page, and the question is, do you think government is stifling freedom of speech? And some of you joined us with your thoughts, and I'll take them quickly, and later we'll open the phone lines and hear from you as well. Colin says, you are in the media. Tell us and stop that hypocrisy. You, the media, always make noise about some people's work conditions, yet you can't talk about your own. And you heard one of my guest lists here from talking about that earlier, that media people should begin to speak up for themselves. And so would be taking more of those comments. And Sujiapo says, this freedom of speech has given some of you the opportunity to write false news, tarnish some people's image, only to later write some apology. And he calls it like very little apology, somewhere hidden in a newspaper or on a website. Thanks for your comment. James says, even you at Joy FM and TV are not touched, and you say the press is not free, then go join those free countries. Now, talking about Joy FM being touched, there a couple of my colleagues, Latif Idris, classic example, who is still nursing injuries from an attack from members of Ghana's police service. He went there to cover an event and he was brutalized. Okay, so this is first-hand experience. We've witnessed it here. There's some who have threats. People go into our DMs on Facebook and Instagram threatening us because we're doing our jobs. And so just to help you, James, if you're not aware, yes, we have been attacked. Says, will you be asking this if they are not? Sorry to answer you with a question. Nunu says, I'd like to know first, the criteria for scoring countries on the index before I can make a comment. All right, and we've done that earlier in the show. My colleague, Benjamin Akakpo, has also joined me. So, Benjamin, we're told that this particular index or report was compiled using some indicators.
Right.
The methodology was quite different from earlier reports. And I've done that with my guest earlier. But let's just help this person who would like to know what the indicators are in terms of scoring the countries.
Well, we'll get into that. I'll walk them through what exactly went into this, because the methodology has changed a bit this year. Though some say it has nothing to do with our performance. It is what it is. But just an interesting bit. You were talking about, there was a comment where someone was saying that, oh, people think you are maybe above the law and you can't be touched. And you were mentioning some of our colleagues who had been affected. And in fact, they had been touched in different ways. So no one is trying to say that we can be reckless with journalism. And like you see here, we're credible, we're fearless, and we're independent because we do the right things. But there are limits to everything, and we operate within that box. But when some things are done in certain ways, look at what happened to Erastus Asaridonko. For what? Capturing what happened in Ejura. Look at how he was treated, even in front of that committee. And I'm not mincing words. I say that I take no prisoners when I speak about these matters. Was that, becoming of the process? Was that what we would have wanted to see? What was his crime? covering and reporting. So these are the matters to consider. And when people talk about it, it's not to say that we are above the law in any way.
Untouchable.
We are very within it, but these are dynamics, and we're seeing it reflected in this latest report.
All right, so I'll leave you to try and help Nunu, who wants to know the criteria, and let me take a few comments while we work on that. And well, this one says hypocrisy will kill you there, and this one says it puts more fear on student journalists. The current happenings will scare students away from the profession. True. Gershon says the results slip has spoken for itself. When was the last time you heard that over 100 radio stations were closed down in Ghana? Oh, 100 radio stations closed down in Ghana. I know that some of them that were closed down have been given the go-ahead to start operating, but I'm not sure they're up to 100.
That I do not know.
Yeah, quite an exaggeration there. But Kweku Enyemadu says, I'm surprised among the many things in the report include poor salary structure of journalists. This is the only one to interest you. No, Kweku, we've discussed that on the show, and Benjamin will be running us through the factors. We would also pull it up for you shortly. So we have the political context, there's the economic context, there's the legal framework, there's the safety of journalists, and the social context. The first one is the political context, okay? And the second one is the legal framework. The third is the economy. Fourth is social structure, and third is safety. And if you've been watching the show since we started this discussion, I threw the question to our guests. Ghana's worst performance was under the economic context. And we've discussed that largely. And so nobody's shying away from that. And we've spoken to our guests on how that influences the very work of journalists, and the fact that sometimes for some of us, because of what a certain political character will give you, or a certain political party will give you, you're sometimes under pressure not to do your work so well. And so we've discussed that, Kweku. This is just by way of response to you. Nana Kwabna Edubuahing says, not at all. He thinks government is not stifling freedom of speech. In Ghana, what we have here is more than freedom of speech. Our journalists only have to be responsible, and we'll have the best of everything. Yaira Yao says, answer the question yourself. Okay. Yankee Thomas says, what will my answer change? Some unfriendly responses there. George Agbo says, are we journalists? Okay, you are the journalist. And this one says we are under a dictatorship, so there's nothing new. The man is ruling this country. All right, he says, as a village. So, Benjamin, this is where we are, unfortunately. And a lot of people say this with a lot of hurt, that Burkina Faso is above Ghana. Ivory Coast is above Ghana. Niger.
We're in
is above Ghana.
Very uncharted territory when it comes to the latest report. You look at the countries we are rubbing shoulders with ignominiously. You have the likes of Bosnia and Herzegovina, and countries that we are not familiar with when it comes to this. In fact, our record is deemed problematic. We're in the problematic category, which should tell you what exactly is happening. It's a bit of an issue, finding ourselves in this league. But just to go back to what you said initially about the methodology, so a bit of a tweak to it, not too much, but when you look at what Reporters Without Borders shares, it talks about a new way of compiling the index, and it references working with a committee of 7 experts from the academic and media sectors, and how it developed a new methodology to compile the 20th World Press Freedom Index, which is what we're dealing with. And in this index, just to give some broader understanding, it defines press freedom as, quote, the effective possibility for journalists as individuals and as groups to select, produce, and disseminate news and information in the public interest, independently from political, economic, legal, and social interference, and without threats to their physical and mental safety.
I like
it's
the mental.
all-encompassing if you look at the definition.
Yes, And I would allow you to proceed, but here's something that people forget. That when you go onto social media to abuse a journalist, you may not have inflicted physical wounds on the journalist, but there's a mental assault. Do you understand? There's a psychological aspect to it, and sometimes we really overlook that. There are people I know who have not been hit physically, but just the mere act of a group of police officers chasing that person. She's always looking over her shoulders when she sees a police vehicle.
Forget police officers. You're looking at, go on social media. Now, you know there are the serial callers and there are the serial texters as well. And it is clear where they stand. But sometimes they take you on merely because of where they stand, not because of the issues you're discussing. A typical example is from yesterday. And for some of us who have thick skins, we don't really care. I mean, you can do your worst. But you notice the trend. Yesterday we had a discussion when I had Elekem Kotoko and Kofi Ameyaw in the studio to talk about Ghana at a crossroads as per JDM. And I noticed from some of the comments that people were just being party foot soldiers on the platform. So someone insinuates something because the person wasn't even listening and not listening to what the follow-ups would be. And that in itself is abuse. That is the social context of the abuse. But of course it is tinged with the political elements because these people have paymasters and they'll come after you simply because, well, it's in the interest of my paymasters. But it goes on to say, in order to reflect press freedom's complexity, and this is where I'll end, 5 new indicators are now used to compile the index. So they talk about what you mentioned, the political context where the ruling administration and how they react to the media comes in. And we've had plenty to talk about in that regard. The legal framework, how does it apply? And are journalists being singled out unjustly? The economic context. Are you being exposed to any economic, financial situations merely because you're carrying out your work? Social cultural context and security. And security is crucial to me because we've seen things happen in this country.
Well, we'll be bringing you more on this even as we wrap up the show because like I said, we see a lot of this, Benjamin. I mean, I have been here for quite some time. We've been called regime changers before when Party A won and when Party B won, we won. So you see that people are just not sitting back and asking themselves, why are we tagging them this or that depending on who's in power?
In the last election, in 2020, it was such a stifling feeling, if you recall. I mean, some people were even afraid of going to their workplaces, media people, because...
Or even going home from the office.
And if you were in a branded vehicle, for example, you would want to think twice about moving out. All that doesn't work. It doesn't feed into proper, media press or press freedom. All of those. So sometimes, even as we talk about government, we should also look at ourselves, and how we approach this entire situation. If I'm merely putting out the facts, the figures, why single me out for anything?
Because it doesn't please you.
Or your paymasters.
Well,
yeah.
We have to move on.
Oh yeah, we also have Kojo Brace joining us. We're trying to find out how the E-levy is affecting online business. Kojo is interacting with some Ghanaians as far as online business is concerned. That's up next. Do stay.
Around Achimota, and in an office where everything here is about providing services for online businesses. There's one man who provides service for people and they pay through Momo, and then we have an IT person who would help us understand how these things, how people who provide services online can go about all of this E-levy transactions. Chief, for you who provide services for people to pay for you online through Momo, how has the past few days been from Sunday to today?
Okay, so we have a platform called Skillmine. We provide safe and secure business transactions between freelancers, those who work remotely, and those who have services, known as the gig owners. So those with the services contact the freelancers to do businesses with them, and the payments are being done through Momo because it's a remote job. So once you offer a service to the gig owner and the payment is being done, you are being charged on the amount you send to the freelancer. So let's say you charge 300 cedis. You are going to be charged the tax on the 300 cedis, the E-levy tax on the 300 cedis, and the service charges also. And this has made things very difficult for us. But when you look at our platform, we have a merchant platform that payments are being done to. So when you do a business with us directly and you are making the payment, you make the payment to us, which is a merchant account, without being charged. Okay. So you see, and it's very safe. So the monies that you send to us, to the service, to the freelancer, is not being charged at all. But it has become very difficult because people think that once they offer services, they are going to be charged. And people tend to be in the middle, not really want to do businesses with freelancers. But with our platform, I can say that it's safe.
But if you look at the introduction of the E-levy and the implementation we started on 1st May, how has that impacted on the people who do business with you?
Seriously, we've been receiving messages and calls that they are now going to withdraw their services because they can't have it that they charge a client 400 cedis and the clients are not willing to add the charges to it.
Oh. So they want their client to pay the charge plus the E-levy that they will be deducted?
Exactly, because I will charge you 400 cedis to do something for you. And when you send me the 400 cedis, you'll be charged. So meaning that you, that I'm providing the services for, is going to pay more than 400 cedis. So you or the person I'm offering the services to is not comfortable, it's not happy, and wants me to take up the charges, which is really, really affecting my business. So what I have to do is to reduce the charge. If the thing is supposed to cost 400 cedis, I have to reduce it to maybe 380 cedis, so that when they pay together with the E-levy, it will amount to maybe 400 cedis, which is really, really bad. It's really, really bad, and it's affecting businesses. A lot of people have started withdrawing. Those that contacted us earlier on to have their services done with us have called us that we should hold on. They'll get back to us. They don't know if the E-levy, they are going to take it back or they will still go on to implement it.
Interesting. For you, Henry, you have been in the IT space for some time. How do you help people like him address their challenges or their issues with this E-levy thing?
All right, so let me first of all say that the taxes is not a big deal. I mean, I always say that taxes is what builds the country. But generally, I think that the implementation of this particular E-levy has always been in a rush. First of all, because second, and when you're looking at the implementation, whenever you're implementing tech systems, you go through a bit of policies and in the IT sector where it goes through engineering as well before it gets to the people. Usually, you should actually be piloting certain parts of the E-levy so that people sort of merge into where there's supposed to be a lot of education that comes in. I mean, for his platform, you'd realize that people that are paying to him pay to him without paying the E-levy because the merchant account. But if he's moving money to the individual people that they are transacting on his businesses, he has to pay E-levy on all of them. And so that becomes a bit difficult because the person who is paying in does not pay the E-levy, does not consider the E-levy. But when he is now distributing the money across board, that becomes a bit of a challenge. Now, you'd realize that people are even trying to now find ways and means around indulging. I've seen a lot of TikTok videos and YouTube videos of how to dodge E-levy. I mean, if you're looking at some of those videos, you would laugh because you'd realize that you try running away from these levies, but it's an electronic platform. You can't always run away because there are certain points where you would be forced to use the platform and you would be charged at different points. You're getting the point. And so for his, I mean, I think that what I can really help him in that regard because it's a policy, it's a law, and these are algorithms that are running around all the electronic platforms. And so what generally could be done really is, I think that the GNRA should step in and do a lot more education. Because I think that people don't even know that there are exemptions and all of that. People don't know that when you are doing deposits, you are not being charged. When you are doing withdrawals, you are not being charged. So there's quite a lot of things. I've seen them ring out a long PDF format where you have to read. But our mothers and fathers who are in the farms and then the marketplaces cannot read essentially everything that is there.
So as an IT consultant, people like him are complaining that their customers are complaining of how they have to add on to the levy, and that has even come about him reducing the cost of charging or how much he charges people for a service. What must be done between the service provider and the customer?
I think from their part as well, they should actually be doing a lot of education. I've seen STC like this release Facebook post saying that they are not going to be charged E-levy. And so it makes it easy for somebody to say, okay, I can still buy a ticket at STC without being charged. I've seen DSTV do the same. And so that means that the entities that are sort of exempted because they are merchants can sort of also do education in their own small part, or on their Facebook, send direct messages to their customers via SMS or via WhatsApp. However channel they seem to be communicating with their customers, they should be able to be going through that process, right? So I think that, again, from our point as IT experts, we sort of also have to now deploy these systems on their systems. And so notifications on their systems should also be very seamless. To those who are being the cost which comes up, I've seen one bank, when I was doing the transactions, they clearly deducted everything that was a charge. And so it made it easier for me to sort of appreciate how much I'm being charged and how much I'm not being charged. And so it makes it transparent enough for people to sort of appreciate that, okay, I'm paying E-levy on this particular service, I'm not paying E-levy on this particular service. But I think the education is the way to go now. I think that that's the only point where people could start interacting with their customers and getting them to sort of understand their position, whether they're exempted or they're not exempted.
So for businesses that rely on online services, like you buy and I supply online and then you pay to me online as well, what they could do now, you described it as terrible?
Yeah.
Why so?
Because they are going to stand in the point where they are in the P2P point, and the P2P point definitely is going to catch up with you in terms of the transaction. So now this is what's going to happen. If I supply you goods, you bring a delivery guy to me. If I'm paying the delivery guy, I have to pay him and I'll be charged E-levy. If I'm paying to the person who is not by me, I can't give the physical cash. Now this is what happens. Even if I have physical cash, I can't charge the delivery guy to be giving the money to the person. And so that means that I'll be caught up in that angle. I'll pay E-levy on the transaction. Now, if I'm also supposed to also pay, let's say, my major suppliers, I'll be charged E-levy. Double taxations there, right? And so that cycle really is a terrible point for quite a lot of people. And so I think that what will happen is that a lot of these people are going to be forced, maybe that's the intention of government, to sort of force a lot of these businesses to get into the registered businesses area, where now they would actually be able to acquire merchant terms and then be able to just be exempted out of the taxes. At least when they are within that sector, they pay other taxes which can actually be monitored and all of that. Because if you are a registered business like his, you'd realize that you are not being charged the E-levy whenever transactions are coming in because you have a merchant SIM. But if you're doing a P2P, you're done. Yeah.
All right, so you're still listening to watching the AM show. We are out here speaking to business owners and people who transact business online. They buy and sell online. People pay them through Momo, and how the reaction has been. Chief, so you heard him there, that the thing that some of you should do is to educate your client. And for people like you, whose businesses have not probably been registered, to register. From this angle, how are you approaching your customer relations to get them to appreciate what is at hand?
Well, I can say that we all now know that E-levy is a reality. And maybe from what he said, we have to intensify our education and make sure that our customers understand that after paying to us and we are transferring the monies to back to the freelancers that offer the services, we are rather bearing the cost. So if we are to reduce our monies or our charges, it will rather affect us. And if they affect us, we won't be able to stay in business to carry.
So if I understand you, when you are transferring the money to the people who provided the service per se, what do you call them? the freelancers, you pay e-levy on it.
Yes,
okay.
Exactly. So let's say you pay me to do a service for you, and you pay it through our merchants or to our system, and the freelancer is done. When we are transferring the money to their account or to their account, we pay e-levy on it. Okay. So let's say if we decide to reduce the charges for you, and you pay, and we are now going to bear the cost, we will run out, and we won't be able to stay in business to provide those wonderful services that we have for you. So what we will appeal to our customers out there, that the e-levy has become a reality. So they should bear with us and to understand us that this is what we've come. We have to pay taxes to help build the country.
Does this apply to all online suppliers, people who do business, social media, and what have you?
Yes. Recently, we heard the finance minister saying that they are going to start taxing those online businesses, those having businesses on social media. So it applies to all of them.
Thank you very much. So I guess you've had a lot of info from these two gentlemen who do business online. Let's continue the discussion. This is a continuous process. So let's keep discussing wherever we are. Join us on our social media platforms. Let's talk about this so that we all know where we will be moving to from here. Like they said, if you pay taxes, it's good. We only have to continue educating ourselves so we'll know where we'll be going from here. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us. And thank you for catching up with us. So from Achimota, back to you, those in the studio.
From Achimota. We're here, right here in Kukumlime still doing the do. But today is an interesting day when it comes to court, right?
Exactly, and the e-levy, and we've got our men on the ground monitoring events, and we'll furnish you with all the details in subsequent bulletins. If we get any before we leave, we will definitely bring you the minorities case in court seeking an injunction on this particular e-levy implementation. Although the implementation has happened already, we just wonder what it's going to look like. But you spoke to the court say. Yes, you spoke to Martin People earlier on the show.
And of course he didn't want to
commit
shoot
himself
ahead of what the court would say, but he had his own position when it comes to injunctions of that nature, because what they do is they want to prevent a certain action. In this instance, he says if he were giving advice to government or giving counsel to government, he would have told them to hold it, don't roll out the implementation of the e-levy, wait till the 4th, find out how things will pan out. Or better still, there was an alternative way. You reach out to the justicial system, and you know now courts sit on weekends and all of that. So just appeal to them to push the date forward. So they could have easily said, let's push the hearing to the 30th of April, and then you deal with the issue. And if it goes your way, then you can roll on with it. But they didn't do that. And now he feels that is a slap in the face of the judiciary, and that it was derisive, that action towards the judiciary. But it is what it is. Yeah. Today we find out how things will go.
Exactly, and we'll let you know everything about the e-levy and that court case. But right here on the show, we'll take a quick breather. When we come back, we'll be taking your phone calls, talking about World Press Freedom Day. And if you're a business owner who uses the online electronic payment platform, let us know how the e-levy is affecting your business. Do stay with us. We'll be back shortly.
All right, here we are again, and we're going to be taking some of your social media comments, and we'll activate the lines as well. The number will be rolling right underneath your screen, so you can get interactive with us. Bernice, what are we talking about?
Definitely
E-levy,
talking about the e-levy and how it affects online platforms. Those who, have online websites where people have to pay, use a card or Momo option.
So how are people reacting in that regard?
Yes.
We'd like to know.
We'd like to know, do you have people opting for cash on delivery, or people still go ahead to give you money via those platforms?
So I'll share something with you. There's this gentleman that I deal with, tech gadgets and others. I just saw a message from him this morning, and he says, henceforth, he's going to have a merchant number. Sometimes you can pay through mobile money. He says, don't pay me via that again. He's going to use a merchant number so that he can avoid certain things. At least that is a personal reaction I've just seen. And this person sent me a message. just a few minutes ago.
Okay, well, so do share your own experience with us, and also we talk about press freedom. There are many angles to this, many aspects, you know, and you definitely know that when we have this conversation, people talk about the quality of journalism in this country, but we've always maintained that there are ways to address those issues. And even for those who criticize government, they are always quick to add that there are ways to address those issues. There's an avenue for civil redress. You don't take policemen, you don't use state machinery to intimidate journalists.
When you're approaching, I mean, what we saw in the Adan area, when you're going to a radio station, no matter what has happened, and it's the full force of people that we don't even know. And do you know one thing that has become very problematic? National security. You can't even tell who is in national security. So they invade your radio station and they claim we are national security. So you don't even know, do I comply with them? Do I not comply with them? These people look shady. All those things are in there. We're still suffering from the backlash of what happened to Ahmed Hussein Swali, among other things. So it's a whole pot of issues we have to look at. But you know the one with the bash me pass? You know the one with the bash me pass?
Tell me.
See, Niger fared better than that one. I can't think far.
That one hurts a bit. I mean, considering what Ghana represents in terms of democracy, and you know, democracy and free press, they go hand in hand. So it's quite a bit uphill to swallow, and we'll see how we can improve our
That's exactly what the Secretary General of the UN said, you know, Antonio Guterres, that press freedom, democracy are hand in glove. You can't detach them. Well, let's pick our first caller, Shamo. I don't know whether it's hard to vote Shamo, but Shamo in Wale Wale. Shamo, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining. What would you like to share in terms of the issues we've tabled?
Yeah, I want to talk about press freedom.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. I think the government has been, of late, has been so reckless in terms of the press freedom.
So how do you feel about the report? We've fallen 30 places.
It could recruit the security services, those who have been recruiting the security services.
Okay, so Shamo, I noticed what you're doing. You're using your set, maybe your television. Just listen to me on the phone. That will be better because it will just confuse you, okay? All right. It appears we've lost Shamo. Shamo was using his set to follow me. When you call, please just focus on the phone. Listen to me. Or Bernice, and let's take it from there. But Bernice, we also have Gershon from Koforidua.
Hello, Gershon. Thank you for joining the program. Let's hear what you have to say.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning. Hello.
Hello, Gershon. I can hear you. Please go ahead.
It's something that I'm still not getting clear. I spent 3,620 Ghana cedis to somebody yesterday. And then I was deducted, MTN deducted me 7 cedi, 50 pesos. But the tax, which is the E-levy, has deducted me 52 cedis, 80 pesos. So I'm asking, my question is that the owner of the MTN or the network is charging 7 cedi, 50 pesos. So why the E-levy charging 52 cedis? It is not indirect robbing. So I want to get clear of this issue, because if the MTN, that is the owner of the network, charges me 7 cedi 50 pesos for sending 3,620, then the tax, which is the E-levy, charging me 52 cedi 80 pesos. I can't get it.
We'll address that. So it just has to do with the percentage on the amount, and there's a way the computation is done, and so in many of the examples we've seen, the E-levy is usually higher than the service charge.
Okay,
so I don't think that's an isolated case.
Right. So that was Gershon. Gershon, I just did the mathematics, and And this is the breakdown. So 3,620 cedis, it means they will charge you on 3,520 cedis. So if you factor in 1.5% out of the figure you sent, 3,520, taking off the first 100, you will get 52 cedis, 80 pesos, which is 1.5%. So that is what they charged you.
The amount you were charged.
So
that is the E-levy that hit you.
I get it. I know. Yeah, but what I'm so my question is that the MTN or the network that holding this whole E-levy issue, or why are they charging this less? So why can't the government do something about it? At least if the MTN is charging 760%, at least there is supposed to be something to be done. At least if the government is taking the E-levy, something like 5 cedi or 4 cedi, I think it's okay.
Right.
But
so
I think it shouldn't be higher than the company itself. Is the MTN or the network.
And that's why some other people were fighting for a reduction in the percentage of the amount you were sending at the E-levy. But as it is now, this has been rolled out, and so I don't want to say that our argument here is a little belated, but let's wait to see what happens in court.
Alone, calculating the taxes with the E-levy is run over to 1.2 yesterday, me alone.
So we feel your pain, but
that's what it is.
In order not to, though I'm trying not to sound insensitive because we're all in it, it is what it is because it is the law as of now.
Yeah.
And so if you decide to use mobile money, this is what you're going to have to deal with. But we also have Bright in Adenta. Bright, good morning.
Good morning, Ben.
Sorry for keeping you on the line, Bright. So a quick one. What are you going to talk about? Freedom of speech or the E-levy or both?
I want to do both.
You want to do both? All right, shoot.
Well, on the freedom of speech aspect, I think that we should brace up ourselves for the coming 2 years.
Bright, could you just speak up a little for me? I'm struggling to hear you.
All right, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Better, thank you.
I said on the freedom of speech aspect, we as a country must raise up ourselves for the coming 2 years because there will be more pepper for us.
Okay.
Why do you say that?
In a country where government machineries pay people what we call the 700 Ghana to unleash the attack dogs of people who have dissenting views, a country where journalists cannot speak truth to power without being intimidated, a country where the government wants to determine the pace of communication in terms of things that are in their favor. This is just even the beginning of it. And funny enough, this is a country being headed by a human rights lawyer or advocate. We have seen it happen over and over again. It is no shock to us. I'm just hoping that, as they have been doing, when they were in opposition, they have always been touting the agencies, for instances, and their rankings and what have you.
Okay.
But the moment they came into power, and when these agencies come with these kind of things, they come down to rubbish it in whatever way they find themselves. So I am just not surprised about this, and I believe and I think that we are heading to the west. Don't be surprised when next year we are falling way below what we have done now.
Okay.
Because that is the reality.
All right.
On the part of the E-levy.
Okay, briefly, because we must take other callers as well. Just briefly on that.
Yes, it's my prayer that this morning or this week, there will be a little bit of fidelity left in our court to save Ghanaians. That is just one prayer. Because as for government and government post and position, it is clear. They don't have the interest of the Ghanaian population in mind. They don't have the interest of the SMEs, the businesses that rely on mobile money or e-transaction. They don't have it in mind.
Okay.
The only thing we can hope on this morning is the fidelity in the court, and we pray that a little bit of it remains so that they save the situation.
Brian from Adenta, thank you for calling. Bernice, we have Ben from Wassa East.
Hello, Ben. How's Wassa East?
Hello.
Hello, Ben. How's Wassa East?
We are doing great.
All right. Let's hear your contribution.
I have just 2 questions. My question is, the first is, are we not at the mobile money merchants or the MTM deductions that you do. At the end of the year, is the government not charging them tax on the transactional? Don't they charge them taxes on the transactional fee that they did? That is the initial 1.1 they were deducting before, now it has become 0.75. If so, then why then do you go ahead to charge 1.5 on the same money you've already charged a transactional fee, of which there's a tax on that fee that the institution has charged? For me, I don't have problem with taxes. When you talk, someone might say you have problem and issue with taxes. Yes, we want to develop, and as we go on, our needs go up. So definitely there's money that we need to do. But it might be better, in my own view, if there should have been a threshold. You see, now yesterday I intentionally did a transaction just to confirm out. When DRA came out, they read that when you do a transfer from a bank, your own bank account to your Momo wallet, or your Momo wallet to the bank, it will not be charged if only you've registered with your Ghana card. So I just wanted to test that alone. So I first withdrew 100 Ghana because they said the threshold was 100 Ghana. I withdrew 100 Ghana from my bank account to my wallet. And that 100 Ghana, there was no deduction because of this. I subsequently did a further transfer of 3,000. And there was a charge. What I've done all those leakage with my Ghana card.
Hold on, Ben, just to get clarity. So you sent 3,000 from where? Your mobile money account to?
No, from a bank account to my mobile money wallet.
Your own bank account to your own mobile money wallet?
Yes.
And there was a charge?
If you doubt it, I will send you the message for you to see.
But we are told that the platform is not yet integrated fully, and so we would have some of these issues.
On the eve of that implemented, that was the Sunday, or the Saturday evening, I received a message from 3 different banks that I have accounts with. 3 different banks I have accounts with. That when I do transfer from bank to my wallet to be charged, vice versa. So on the Sunday, I was like, how? Because the explanation I got from the GRA and other stuff wasn't that way. So Ben, I just wanted to try the system and see if indeed
Ben, just to get clarity on this matter, the system is not fully operational in terms of integration. The EMIs, like Mobile Money Limited for MTN, are operating in silos for now, separately. It will be integrated, fully integrated in July. So for now, some of these problems will be noticed. But what you must do when you notice the problem, alert your bank so that you can have a record of this. And moving forward, there will be reversals moving on. Ben, we're grateful for your time. We'll pick Ahmed from Kumasi, a final caller. Ahmed, good morning.
My name is Ahmed from Kumasi. I would just like to comment on the freedom of speech to that ranking, World Freedom.
Right, go ahead.
Ranking. I think it's a true reflection of what is happening in Ghana. We don't need any rocket scientists to tell us. This is a true. It's magnanimous to us, because come to think of this, Ahmed Swallow was gruesomely killed. Nobody said something. We didn't even find the perpetrators. We are not saying that it's the government that caused it, but what we do is that the primary function of every government is to provide security to its citizens, especially journalists. Look at what happened to that Asepa guy, isn't Mensa Thompson. Look at what is alleged to have happened to Anaki Azuki. Look at the City FM guy, Khalid something. Look at what happens to him. Even you sitting in the studio today, you are afraid to even be critical of the government of the day. When you mention government, you mention the ills 1, 2. Believe me, you'll be thinking of where to sleep tonight, because you are afraid. You don't know what will happen to you. But remember, you as journalists, divided we stand, united we stand, divided we fall. When those things happen to the other colleagues, I expected the media fraternity to condemn it in no uncertainty. But it's like each one for himself, God for us all. Now, the government has turned itself to, a vampire. Just trying to catch anything that comes across its way. Once you are not with me, then you are my enemy. How can a state move like this? But believe me, the worst is yet to come. With respect to freedom of speech,
The worst is yet to come. Heading towards 2024. Already, Kofi Kumsin has advised warnings, but some of us were not smart enough to read in between the lines. This is the dividend of what we see. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you to Ahmed. You are our final caller calling from Kumasi. We've got quite a picture, haven't we, in terms of the E-levies rollout, and also on the back of this latest report on the freedom of speech. Bernice, we'll have a lot more opportunity to get into some of these matters, but they leave us with a lot to think about.
Exactly.
The problems we're seeing when it comes to E-levy implementation, and today we'll get clarity as far as the legal angle is concerned, and then the freedom of speech, the index. It gives me a lot to worry about, not just as a media person, but as a Ghanaian, and I feel we all must work at it, because the social media abuse and the this and the that, it all feeds into it, but it behoves government and entities like the GJA to streamline matters and ensure that we change the script, because dropping 30 places,
That's
it definitely
too wide.
isn't. I mean,
Yeah.
100% drop.
Yeah. Too bad.
But anyway, it's been another fab morning, but it's on the way to
Exactly.
Lancer.
Exactly.
And here we are. But right before we draw the curtains on the show, water is life, right? We don't need to tell you. Water regulates your body temperature and keeps you alive and kicking. Awake is premium purified water treated through a strict purification process to ensure that every bottle on the market refreshes you better. We have the perfect sizes for all occasions, 330 and 500 ml bottles to fit your pockets and bags, 750 ml for the heavy drinkers, and for those who are like me, 1.5 liters for those who want more. We have introduced our special 19-liter jars for homes and offices as well, if you want the big sizes. Now, you just need to stay awake with Awake Purified Drinking Water wherever you go. So come on, grab a bottle of Awake water and get quality hydration. Awake Purified Drinking Water, one for life. Remember, for every bottle you purchase, an amount is donated to the National Cardiothoracic Center. It's produced by Casapreco. For bulk purchases, please call 0262 351 251. And that's how we wrap the show. It's been another beautiful morning with, should I do this? I am Bernice Abubedu Lanza. And you are? Bye-bye to you. Have a wonderful day.
Enjoy the rest of your day.